Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Naruto started cultivating immortality from creating the six-fold immortal thief. Chapter 21. Orochimaru did not deny it. Instead, he showed a serious expression on his face and said in a deep voice, "Teacher Sarutobi, I do mean this. There is a strong wind blowing on Yusuke's body. I want to see what kind of changes this wind will make to the ninja world. So before he completes the change, I will do my best to help him. Do you understand what I mean, teacher?" Looking at the serious expression in Orochimaru's eyes, Sarutobi Hiruzen was silent. He understood that Orochimaru was serious. But he also didn't understand why Orochimaru would go to this extent for a mere Yusuke Akamichi. No matter how he looked at his disciple, he was a selfish person who only cared about himself. After a long while, Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke, "Do you really believe in Yusuke so much?" Orochimaru smiled and said, "It's not belief. I saw a possibility in Yusuke, a possibility of changing the current situation in the ninja world. For this possibility, I am willing to give him everything I have. Okay, I promise you, I won't attack Yusuke in secret. But I want to know what Yusuke's theory is. Why would my proudest disciple defend him so much? Yes, but teacher, you have to give me the spirit transformation technique in the sealed book for me to study." After hesitating for a while, Sarutobi Hiruzen thought about it. The spirit transformation technique is difficult to practice and has little power. It is more used for assassination and gathering intelligence. It is okay to give it to Orochimaru, so he nodded and said, "Okay." Orochimaru smiled and was even more excited, finally got it. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spit out a sticky scroll, throwing it to Sarutobi Hiruzen. "This is Yusuke's theory, teacher, you can take a look." After taking the scroll, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't wait to open it, and didn't care about the sticky saliva on it, and read it carefully. The more he looked at it, the more surprised he was, and there was an expression of disbelief in his eyes. After a long time, Sarutobi Hiruzen breathed a sigh of relief. It's an outrageous idea to accumulate chakra continuously and use it to gradually evolve life when the chakra accumulates to a certain level. The idea was outrageous enough. And what was even more outrageous was that he had even completed the basic theory, using the sealing technique to prevent chakra from escaping from the body. No wonder Yusuke Akamichi had chakra but couldn't even use the most basic three-body technique. Now think about it, he was already practicing and perfecting this theory at that time. Such Yusuke Akamichi is really scary. Looking at the theory in his hand, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't believe what the ninja world would become after this theory was completely perfected. He really couldn't imagine it. However, he also found the problem with this theory, which is, Orochimaru, this theory is indeed shocking, but it also has a problem, that is, how much chakra does a person need to accumulate? If a large amount of chakra is consumed during the accumulation period, this time will be extended again. And why not become a Jinchuriki? I believe that the chakra of the tailed beast should be enough to complete the initial accumulation. Orochimaru, teacher, you think too simply. First of all, not to mention that there are only 9 tailed beasts in the ninja world, the number is pitiful. Just say that the negative emotions in the chakra of the tailed beasts, how many people can bear it? As for consuming chakra will extend the time to accumulate chakra, I think you think too much, teacher. The speed of the Jonin continuing to accumulate chakra can be compared with that of the Jonin. Ninjas don't fight every day, so it can't extend the time. Besides, compared with the gains brought by this theory, what is that little time? That's right. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought about it and nodded in agreement. He looked around for a while and found no other problems. He was ready to leave. I have a general understanding of the situation. Konoha still has many things that need my attention. I won't stay here any longer. I will ask the ninjas of the Anbu to send the scroll of the spiritualization technique to you later. Remember to receive it when the time comes. Well, goodbye, teacher Sarutobi. After leaving the laboratory, Sarutobi Hiruzen quickly returned to the Hokage's office, took out the book of sealing, and after thinking about it, he sealed Yusuke's theory in it. He didn't plan to spread this theory for the time being, and had to wait until it was more perfect. He copied the spirit transformation technique and rolled it into a scroll. Send this scroll to Orochimaru, and no one is allowed to read it during this period. Yes, a member of the Anbu appeared, took the scroll, turned around and disappeared into the office, leaving only Sarutobi Hiruzen's helpless sigh. Why? At the same time, in the root base, Danzo looked at the root members below with a shocked face. What? You said Hiruzen went to Orochimaru's laboratory, and after a long time he came out with a serious face, holding a scroll in his hand. Because he dreamed of becoming a Hokage, he was very sensitive to Sarutobi Hiruzen's usual travels, and arranged a large number of root members to monitor him. More than 1/3 of the Anbu were root members. As long as Sarutobi Hiruzen had the slightest movement, someone would report to him, not to mention meeting with Orochimaru, who was qualified to inherit the Hokage. What did Hiruzen want to talk to Orochimaru about? Could it be that he wanted Orochimaru to be the 4th Hokage? But that didn't make sense. If he wanted Orochimaru to be the Hokage, he wouldn't have walked out of the laboratory with such a serious face. Danzo began to think wildly, and after a long while, he came to the conclusion that Orochimaru should be the Hokage. No, I must take measures, otherwise I will miss the position of Hokage. He also realized the problem. Compared with Orochimaru's achievements and reputation in Konoha, he was not comparable at all. As long as Orochimaru was willing, he would have no chance. At this time, Namikaze Minato, wearing a fox mask, suddenly appeared at the base of the root. He looked at Danzo and said coldly, Danzo-sama, Hokage has ordered you to release the control of the experimental subject who successfully performed the wood release experiment a few years ago and hand it over to me. Namikaze Minato did not expect Sarutobi Hiruzen to send him on a mission. He really did not understand, but he vaguely guessed that Sarutobi Hiruzen wanted him to know what was hidden in Konoha. Orochimaru, he actually told Sarutobi Hiruzen about Ja. Danzo instantly understood that it was Orochimaru who told Sarutobi Hiruzen, and he was immediately furious, angry that Orochimaru did not keep his promise, but he did not dare to not hand it over. After all, Sarutobi Hiruzen was still the Hokage, and he, the leader of the root, was still his subordinate. Thinking of Jia's wood release, Danzo felt even more uncomfortable. He was still thinking about waiting for Ja to reach the level of the Shodaime in the future to help him become Hokage. At the same time, this kind of frustration made him yearn for the position of Hokage even more. In the west of the village, Yusuke, Kakashi and Lu Ren were completing a newly received D-level mission to help weed the farmland. There were a total of 500 acres of land, and it was really difficult for the three of them to do it. Fortunately, they had the magical skill of Shadow Clone, which made the work of the three people much easier. Lu Ren was responsible for 100 acres. He could only weed 1 acre at a time without Shadow Clone. It didn't take long for him to sweat all over, and his movements became laborious, and the weeding speed slowed down. Yusuke, who had weeded more than half of the land with Shadow Clone, came to the side of Lu Ren and reminded him, Lu Ren, bring your chakra with you when you weed, let it flow with your movements and integrate into your body. This will not only make you feel better, but also have the effect of exercise. Lu Ren was stunned, nodded and thanked him. Thank you, Yusuke. After thanking him, Lu Ren formed the seal with his hands, refined a little chakra, and began to bring his chakra with him when weeding according to Yusuke's instructions. He found that he was indeed much more relaxed, and his body was warm and comfortable. Kakashi, who was not far away, also lowered his ears and began to ponder the technique that Yusuke mentioned. The passerby who had easily weeded an acre of land said excitedly, Yusuke, it's really useful. I feel full of strength now. Thank you so much for teaching me such a useful technique. This must be the secret technique of the Akamichi clan. Yusuke was a little helpless and denied. No, this is just a technique I have figured out through years of training. You just tried it, and the effect is not good yet. You can't do it like me who can exercise my body with chakra anytime and anywhere. This technique is really suitable for people like Yusuke who have a chi seal in their body and chakra in their body at all times. Only those who can fully exert the power of this technique can fully exert the power of this technique. In addition, Yusuke has almost turned this technique into an instinct and can give full play to the power of this technique. Just when Yusuke was about to continue weeding, a small white snake suddenly crawled out of the wheat field. When it saw Yusuke, it stopped, opened its mouth and spit out a scroll, and turned into white smoke and disappeared. Is there anything Orochimaru-sensei wants to talk to me about? Shangsuke picked up the scroll that fell on the ground with doubts and opened it to read. After discovering that it was the reincarnation technique that he had been thinking about, he immediately ignored the task and started to read it. The reincarnation technique is the most mysterious ninjutsu in Naruto and the only ninjutsu that cultivates the soul. This technique can separate one's spirit from the body, turn it into a spirit, and possess the enemy, causing the enemy's spirit to collapse from the inside and die. But the spirit itself has the consciousness of the caster, and its use may not be limited to possessing and killing. In addition, the spirit can also sense the souls of other people. No matter how far away or whether the other party's location is known in advance, it can reach the other party's body after turning into a spirit. Many things can be done by relying on the situation and the user's thoughts, such as transmitting information or confirming the life and death of the other party, and it can also be used to provide chakra for the other party. But the real function of this forbidden technique for Shangsuk is to strengthen the soul. Because the effect of the reincarnation technique is very similar to the Taoist Yangshan Kung Fu, Shangsuk guessed that the reincarnation technique also has the effect of strengthening the soul. After all, the basis of Yangshan is a strong soul, otherwise the soul may be scattered as soon as it leaves the body. Although there is a way to use chakra to strengthen the soul in the soul transformation technique, the article is too short. At most, it can only provide me with a method and ideas for getting started. It's no wonder that Yusuke complained. In fact, the entire article of the soul transformation technique only talks about how to use chakra to strengthen the soul. The rest is all about how the soul can enter the human body to assassinate, transmit intelligence and provide chakra after leaving the body. After skimming through all these contents, Yusuke fixed his eyes on the small content of how to use chakra to strengthen the soul. There was not much content, so he spent less than 10 minutes. First, the chakra is transformed into a yin attribute, and then the soul is strengthened through the yin attribute chakra. The method is indeed simple, and it is exactly the same as I guessed before. The method is simple, but it does not mean it is easy to do. Yin-yang escape is almost not circulated in the ninja world. The related practice methods are all in the ninja families. For example, the practice of yang escape is only in the Senju clan and the Akamichi clan, and the practice roots of the two clans are completely different. As for yin escape, except for Nara and Yamanaka, the rest are I-technique families, among which the Uchiha Clan is the most respected. As for the yin escape nature change that can strengthen the soul, according to the information collected by Yusuke so far, it seems that the only one is the spirit transformation technique. In addition, the practice of yin-yang escape is very difficult. Although yin-yang escape and yang escape represent the power of the spirit and the body, but because of this, it is almost impossible to complete the nature change without a method. I have to finish the task quickly so I can go back and try again. Shangsuk couldn't wait any longer. He sealed the scroll in his hand into the wrist guard on his right hand, and then began to make seals quickly. Multiple shadow clone technique. With Yusuke's low shout, there was a bang, bang, sound of smoke explosions all around, and 50 shadow clones appeared in the field, and without Yusuke's instructions, they began to weed at a rapid speed. Fortunately, the shadow clone can release the chakra by itself and return it to its own body, otherwise it will take several days to recover from such a huge consumption. Seeing that several acres of grass were cut down in the blink of an eye, Yusuke was also impressed by the usefulness of the shadow clone. Yusuke's actions attracted the attention of Kakashi and others, and they all cast their eyes over. They had just noticed Yusuke's abnormality, but they didn't expect that he would react so much and actually split 50 shadow clones to work. Kizaburo, who was indifferent to the side, instantly came to Yusuke's side and said with some displeasure, "Yusuke, what are you doing?" He was really a little angry. The D-level mission at the beginning was to let the newly graduated students like Yusuke familiarize themselves with the mission process and serve as training. In this process, he also had to teach students some knowledge that they could not learn in ninja school. This is why every student who graduated from ninja school first did D-level missions. Now if Yusuke completed all the missions, what would a pure newcomer like Lu Ren do? Seeing Kizaburo coming over, Yusuke thought about it. It might take a long time to get started with the nature change of Yin done. D-level missions were too much of a waste of time for him. Now that the team leader has come, he might as well ask for leave. So, Teacher Kizaburo, can I ask for a leave from you? I have already taught all the teachers you were supposed to teach, and I have even killed a lot of people, so I will not do these D-level missions. When you need to perform C-level missions, you can notify me. I urgently need to go to Master Orochimaru now. Hearing Yusuke's words, Kizaburo was immediately embarrassed. If it was only Yusuke who asked for leave, he would refuse without hesitation, but now Yusuke brought Orochimaru with him, which made him feel entangled. Who is Orochimaru? Everyone in Konoha knows who Orochimaru is. He is the best disciple of Sarutobi Hiruzen, one of the 3 great ninjas in the ninja world, a hero of World War II, and the recognized successor to the 4th Hokage. Most of the young ninjas in Konoha are idols of Orochimaru, and Kizaburo is not surprised. How about this? Yusuke, the mission must continue. After all, you have to get to know your partners. Since your real body can't come, just send a shadow clone here every day. This is the best solution Kizaburo could think of. Yusuke thought about it and thought it was a good idea. He nodded and said, okay. Bang, bang, bang. The next second, Yusuke in front of Kizaburo exploded into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. Not only the one in front of him, but also the other shadow clones in the field all disappeared, leaving only the one not far from the passerby. This time, Kizaburo didn't understand at all, and angrily scolded, okay. So you are a shadow clone. The passerby was fine. After all, his strength was barely that of a genin, his chakra was insufficient, and his physical skills were not enough. The only thing worthy of praise was his theoretical knowledge, so naturally he couldn't comment on Yusuke's behavior. Besides, he hadn't even finished half of the 100 acres of land. If he didn't hurry up, he probably wouldn't be able to finish it by the evening, so how could he have time to care about Yusuke's affairs? On the other side, Kakashi's eyes lit up, and a hint of joy appeared in his eyes, and then he continued to weed with his head down. In Orochimaru's laboratory, a black light flashed, and Yusuke appeared next to an instrument engraved with the word, handsome, and walked into the room next to it. Orochimaru had been waiting for a long time. Orochimaru was not surprised to see Yusuke coming over. He smiled and said, I have received the spirit transformation technique. Is it the same as you expected? Yusuke pulled a chair over and sat opposite Orochimaru. He said, it is the same as expected, but the nature change of yin escape is the same as that of yang escape. It is too difficult to get started. I think it will be difficult to get started in the short term. As a member of the Akamichi clan, Yusuke has the qualifications for yang escape, but he himself is not sure about the qualifications for yin escape. Although he has lived 2 lives and has been meditating for many years, he has strong mental power, but he really does not have much confidence in the nature change of yin escape. Because Yusuke is not good at illusions, and he is more good at removing illusions. However, Yusuke will not give up yin escape chakra. If he fails to practice, he plans to transplant the Sharingan to obtain the qualifications for practicing yin escape chakra. Orochimaru said, no matter how difficult it is, you have to practice. In your theory, Yusuke, both the body and the soul must evolve, so that you can truly live forever. Only one of them is strengthened. If it grows to the limit, it is Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, or maybe a little stronger. Of course I know this, that's why I came to see you, teacher. It's faster for us to practice together than alone. So the 2 of them practiced and communicated at the same time, and Yusuke also sent a shadow clone to perform D-level tasks every day. Bang, bang. A month later, the passerby who had just completed the D-level mission looked helplessly at the shadow clones of his 2 teammates who exploded into smoke and disappeared. This was the 10th time during this period. Since Yusuke asked for leave last time, only Yusuke and Kakashi's shadow clones were left to perform the D-level mission. Only the passerby came in person and practiced diligently every day. He understood that he was inferior to his 2 teammates in all aspects. No matter how he practiced, the gap in strength would only get bigger and bigger. But he was also unwilling to give up. After getting along with Yusuke and Kakashi for a long time, he also wanted to become stronger and didn't want to live a dull life. His dream also needed strength to support it. So after completing the mission, he came to Kizaburo and bowed deeply, saying, Teacher Kizaburo, can you please train me? I also want to become stronger. I don't want to drag the team down. Thinking of the fact that Yusuke and Kakashi didn't need Kizaburo to teach him at all, which made him feel like he didn't have any sense of being a teacher, Kizaburo nodded and agreed, Okay, I'll teach you. Another 2 months passed, and Yusuke and Orochimaru had barely mastered the nature changes of the yin attribute, and the art of spiritualization, and their souls had been strengthened. After the soul was strengthened, Yusuke felt that his thinking was obviously more flexible than before, and many points that were not clear before were now clear as if the Ren and Du meridians were opened. The most important thing is that after the spiritualization, Yusuke can clearly feel the rich natural energy in the air when meditating, which is completely different from the previous perception of only a few dots. Yusuke immediately told Orochimaru about this discovery. Orochimaru also showed a look of joy on his face, and said with a little excitement, I didn't expect that this spiritualization technique would have such a benefit. My sage mode will be completed soon. Yusuke, help the teacher with the experiment. I want to transplant Hashirama cells into my body to obtain an incomplete sage body. Orochimaru now has absolute confidence that he can successfully fill his body with Hashirama cells. After all, so many experiments on clones are not done in vain. All he needs to do is use the spirit transformation technique to strengthen his soul to a certain degree. Then he can go find the snake sage and take a bite, and completely cultivate into the sage mode. Yusuke nodded and prepared to help Orochimaru complete the experiment. He has studied with Orochimaru for a year and has done a lot of experiments himself, so he can naturally help Orochimaru complete the experiment. However, in order to ensure that the experiment is foolproof, Orochimaru still separated 2 shadow clones to lead the experiment and let Yusuke cooperate. Soon, Orochimaru lay on the experimental bed, and Yusuke cooperated with the 2 shadow clones to start the experiment. Orochimaru's shadow clone skillfully cut open Orochimaru's chest, then made a small incision on the heart, and placed the specially prepared Hashirama cells on the wound of the heart. Bang! Bang! As soon as Hashirama's cells were placed in the wound of the heart, Orochimaru's 2 shadow clones exploded into smoke and disappeared. Hashirama's cells then began to spread rapidly throughout the wound and began to erode Orochimaru's heart. Once the erosion was complete, Orochimaru would die because his heart turned into a plant. At this time, it was Yusuke's turn to take action. The reason why Hashirama's cells were like cancer cells was because Hashirama Senju had developed his own sage body to the extreme. The yang escape chakra of the sage body combined with the wood escape he developed made his cells very close to the nature of the sacred tree, so few people could withstand it. And Yusuke has always insisted on the change of the nature of yang attributes since he was a child. He is very sensitive to yang attribute chakra, which can inhibit this small point of Hashirama cells from eroding the human body and prevent the rich yang attribute chakra in the cells from providing vitality to the wood release bloodstains. This is also the reason why Orochimaru asked Yusuke for help. Yusuke's right hand was full of green light, and he placed it on the small opening of Orochimaru's heart. The Hashirama cells that were still eroding Orochimaru's heart instantly calmed down, and under the effect of medical ninjutsu, they began to repair the wounds of the heart and merged into the heart. The reason why Hashirama cells are transplanted into the heart is because the heart is the root of body activities. It can transport Hashirama cells containing vitality to various parts of the body through repeated beatings, so that the inherited immortal body is likely to be more. This theory was proposed by Yusuke and has no theoretical basis, but Orochimaru still chose to believe it and transplant Hashirama cells in this most dangerous way. As time passed, Orochimaru's breathing slowly calmed down, and Hashirama cells had completely merged into his body. At this time, Orochimaru's consciousness was also awake, and he began to mobilize the chakra in his body to stabilize Hashirama cells. Soon, with the cooperation of Yusuke and Orochimaru, Hashirama's cells finally stabilized. Yusuke neatly used the palm magic to heal the cut on Orochimaru's chest, and helped him up even though he was still a little weak, and asked worriedly, "Teacher, how do you feel?" Orochimaru chuckled, stretched out his right hand, and a tender sapling grew out of his palm. He smiled and said, "It's successful. I can feel the abundant vitality in the body. The water and earth chakras in the body are instinctively combined. Wood escape is like instinct. It can be performed with a thought." Seeing this, Yusuke was completely relieved. Being able to use wood escape means that the transplant has been successful. It also means that Orochimaru now has a broken sage body, which is half a member of the Senju clan. Yusuke was naturally happy that Orochimaru succeeded, but he still reminded him, Teacher, the real blood of Senju Hashirama is the sage body, not wood escape. If you want to exert the power of wood escape, you still need to practice more yang attribute changes. I know what you said, Yusuke. For me, wood release is just a means. I haven't forgotten your ultimate theory. If you want to be immortal, you can only practice yin-yang release to the extreme and combine it with natural energy. That's good. Yusuke nodded. What he taught Orochimaru was his 6 treasury immortal thief theory and longevity theory. He had not yet revealed the Chi-Si seal. Only he, Kushina and Namikaze Minato knew about the Chi-Si seal. The others had not revealed it. However, with Orochimaru's wisdom, he also developed his own set of chakra storage methods, which was not much different from Yusuke's Chi-Si seal. The method of storing chakra for Sarutobi Hiruzen was also his. After Orochimaru obtained the incomplete sage body, he drove Yusuke out of the laboratory and began to concentrate on studying the sage body, and practice the art of spiritualization. After returning home, Yusuke began to follow Kizaburo on missions, and at the same time use the mechanism of the shadow clone to try to create his own magic. Even though Yusuke had tried a small amount of rare natural energy before and had a certain resistance to natural energy, it was still very difficult. In just less than 2 days, Yusuke's shadow clone unlocked a variety of ways to die, including petrification, turning into acid, turning into plants, and being suddenly burned to death. In short, the shadow clone turned into various natural things and died. Based on his own death, Yusuke understood that there are many types of magic. The original book mentioned that the ratio of spirit, body and natural energy is 1:1:1, so there should be no problem. It's just that in the ninja world, various natural energies are mixed together and constantly collide with each other, becoming extremely violent. What I have to do is to separate the pure natural energy from these natural energies. Yes, natural energy also has different attributes, just like the attributes of chakra. The basic ones are still wind, thunder, water, fire and earth. However, when they are fused in different proportions, countless natural energies of different attributes will appear. The natural energy of the 3 holy places should be relatively pure and not too violent, so even if the attributes are not compatible, you can still practice successfully, and Jiraiya is just like this. My chakra attribute accounts for 70% earth and 30% fire, so what I have to do is to separate these 2 attributes from the chaotic attributes, but it is probably difficult to do it with my current strength, so I have another choice, which is the 3 holy places. Except that the wet bone forest may not match my attributes, the attributes of the natural energy in the other 2 holy places should be very suitable for me, especially the natural energy of Myoboku mountain. The attributes of those toads in the original book are very clear. Shangsuke thought about it for a while, and decided to go to Minato Namikaze to ask for the summoning scroll of Myoboku mountain and planned to go to Myoboku mountain to take a look. As for the one in Ryachi cave, after becoming his apprentice, Orochimaru asked Shangsuke to sign his name, and he also found a white snake as his summoning beast. With a flash of black light, Shangsuke appeared in the Senju clan's territory, knocked on the door gently, and whispered, "Sister Kushina, are you there?" Immediately afterwards, there was a crackling sound from inside the house, and then Kushina's voice came out, "I'm here." Pushing the door open and walking in, he found Kushina walking out of the kitchen with a black and gray face, spewing out black smoke from time to time, looking very embarrassed. Yusuke asked curiously, "Sister, what are you doing?" Kushina was a little embarrassed, scratched her head, and said embarrassedly, "Minato is not here, I wanted to learn how to cook, and cook for Minato later, so it turned out like this." Immediately, Yusuke was worried about the health of Minato Namikaze. He knew Kushina's cooking ability very well, and he even taught her in person for a while, but she would always blow up the kitchen in various ways. Even if she didn't blow up the kitchen, the food she made was all kinds of charcoal. "By the way, Sister Kushina, is Brother Minato here? I need help from him." Hearing that it was Minato, Kushina wiped off the black dust on her face and said in a deep voice, "You mean Minato? He went to perform the mission of the Anbu. But what do you need from him?" Yusuke did not hide it either. "I want Brother Minato to help me sign the summoning scroll of Myoboku mountain. I want to go to Myoboku mountain." "No, why are you looking for those stinky toads? They are so sticky and disgusting." After saying that, Kushina seemed to have thought of something, Goosebumps appeared on her arms, and she shivered uncontrollably. I want to go to Myoboku Mountain to learn senjutsu. The natural energy in the ninja world is too violent, and my current physique can't bear it. So I want to take a look at the natural energy in Myoboku Mountain. Yusuke explained with a smile. Kushina was stunned, looked at Yusuke, and asked seriously, Yusuke, you are going to complete the third stage theory so soon? It has only been nearly a year since you successfully practiced the second stage. You should know that it took you 5 years to completely perfect the first stage. Yusuke shook his head. The second and third stages are just different in the form of energy in the body. It doesn't require too much improvement to transform chakra into senjutsu chakra. And I'm just trying it now. Yusuke was not wrong about this. Not to mention the difficulty of synthesizing senjutsu chakra. After condensing senjutsu chakra, what he has to do is to condense his own senjutsu body. This process is extremely long and it is very likely to take several years or even decades to succeed. I see. Then you have a lot to wait for. Even I haven't seen Minato for a long time. Kushina showed a look of realization, patted Yusuke on the shoulder and gloated a little, then changed the subject. But now you have to cook a delicious meal for me, your sister, and then teach me cooking. Frightened by Kushina's intimidation, Yusuke had to nod and agree, okay. They cooked a sumptuous meal and they finished it quickly. Then he was pulled into the kitchen by Kushina. After wasting a lot of food, Kushina let Yusuke go. A typical bad boy who loves to play. After leaving the Senju clan, Yusuke left 2 shadow clones to pass on the message to himself, then quickly formed seals with his hands and slapped the ground. Reverse spiritualism technique. As black runes spread on the ground, Yusuke turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. In a relatively remote cave in Longchi Cave, a 3-meter-long white snake was hovering on the stone bed in the corner, carefully practicing the magic of Longchi Cave. Hearing a bang sound from the cave, the white snake opened its eyes. Seeing that the person coming was Yusuke, it said with some confusion, Master Yusuke, why are you here? You should know that Ryochi Cave is not Myoboku Mountain and Wetbone Forest, it is very dangerous. Snakes are cold-blooded animals with weak emotions, and many of the summoned snakes here have reverse scales. They are brutal and cold-blooded. Even the summoned objects of the contract will be the targets of attack. Ordinary ninjas who rashly enter here will be eaten in the end. The white snake was summoned by Yusuke right after he signed the Ryochi Cave scroll. When it was summoned, it was just a small snake the length of a thumb, and because it was pure white, Yusuke liked it more and signed a summoning beast contract with him. Yusuke stepped forward and touched the white snake's head affectionately, and said with a smile, I came to Ryochi Cave to feel the natural energy and prepare for creating my own sage mode. I see. It seems that your strength is going to increase again, Lord Yusuke. Thinking of Yusuke's emphasis on fairy arts, the white snake no longer thought about it. You know, it asked Yusuke to find a way for many things it didn't understand in cultivation. It was also because of Yusuke's inspiration that it focused on fairy arts instead of chakra. Yusuke took his hand away from the white snake, formed a seal to separate 2 shadow clones, and began to meditate and comprehend the natural energy around him. In the cave, Yusuke felt a large number of yellow and blue light spots in the air. The blue gave people a cool feeling, while the yellow light spots were heavy. The 2 light spots also collided with each other, but they were very small. Compared with the violence and chaos caused by the collision of the 5 elements in the ninja world, it was a piece of cake. Sure enough, there is a reason why the 3 holy places can cultivate the sage mode. The environment alone is not comparable to the ninja world. I really don't know how the white snake sage found such an environment suitable for snakes to live. Snakes belong to the yin element, and they like dark and humid environments the most. So almost all snakes have water-attributed chakra, and there is really enough water-attributed natural energy in the Ryochi Cave. However, it is precisely through the comparison between the ninja world and the Ryochi Cave environment that Yusuke guessed that the sage mode of Senju Hashirama should have been developed through the sage body and wood release, rather than the Wetbone Forest sage mode that was guessed at the beginning. Senju Hashirama has all the attributes, and wood release is to a certain extent the embodiment of nature. It is also very tricky to combine with the sage body to absorb the violent natural energy of the ninja world. The big tree is rooted in the earth, absorbing moisture from the soil and heat from the sun, and carrying out photosynthesis. Even wind and thunder can be used by the big tree to a certain extent. This shows the horror of wood release. Since it has been determined that the environment will have a huge impact on cultivation, Yusuke can't wait to use the shadow the clone began to try to practice. The main body used the powerful perception ability during meditation to sense the situation of the shadow clone. 6 years of continuous meditation made Yusuke's mental power much stronger than that of Orochimaru, a cage-level powerhouse. The shadow clone extended his mental power, pushed away the blue light spot, and pulled the yellow light spot into the body of the shadow clone. Mental energy, physical energy and natural energy began to transform the chakra in the body into fairy chakra in a 1:1 ratio. Soon, the fingertips of the two shadow clones showed petrification characteristics, and spread along the arms to the body. Soon the lower body and arms turned into stone, but the petrification process also stopped at this moment. The next moment, the petrification on the shadow clone began to fade slowly, and lines began to appear on his face. The khaki lines entangled with each other, combining to form a special pattern, which vaguely looked like rock. Is this a success? Yusuke opened his eyes and looked at the shadow clone who had successfully practiced the sage mode, his eyes full of disbelief. He didn't expect that he would succeed in just one try. The shadow clone opened his eyes, saw the unbelievable Yusuke, smiled confidently, walked to the open space in the cave, and began to experiment with the power of the sage mode. Soon the second shadow clone was also successful. White Snake also felt the sage chakra on the two shadow clones, came to Yusuke, and said, "Congratulations, Lord Yusuke. You have successfully created your own sage mode." Yusuke nodded woodenly. He still couldn't believe that he succeeded in one try. After a while, the two shadow clones exited the sage mode. After the shadow clones were released, 2 streams of information instantly flooded into Yusuke's mind. This was the process of the 2 shadow clones practicing the sage mode. After absorbing it, Yusuke also had a better understanding of the sage mode. He could also succeed in the Ryochi cave, but at the same time, he also understood that his sage mode was not mature enough compared to the 3 Holy Lands and Senju Hashirama. He was probably only successful in the environment of the Ryochi cave. It would be difficult to succeed in the environment of the ninja world. And now he is just like Naruto, who just completed the sage mode. After turning on the sage mode, he cannot absorb the natural energy from the outside world, resulting in the sage mode being exited when the sage chakra in his body is used up. Naruto is unable to absorb natural energy in the sage mode because of the influence of the 9 tails chakra, but Yusuke has no other way. He cannot absorb the natural energy in the air when he exits the meditation state. Now he absorbs natural energy by meditating and using his strong mental power to forcibly absorb natural energy. He cannot do it as naturally as the sages of the 3 Holy Lands, just like breathing. There was a ready-made successful case nearby. Sashangji naturally would not let it go, and asked directly, "White Snake, after you successfully practiced the immortal technique, how did you continue to absorb the natural energy in the air?" White Snake lowered his head, pondered for a moment, and said, "It's breathing. Through regular breathing, you can absorb the natural energy that suits you into your body, and then convert it into natural energy." The White Snake told Yusuke all the secrets of the immortal arts that Ryochidong had passed on to these snakes without reservation. Hearing this, Yusuke froze on the stone bed, breathing, exhaling. "I remember the theory of the 3 dantians, but why did I forget the way to breathe?" As the first step of many cultivation theories, the status of breathing in cultivation is not much worse than the theory of the 3 dantians. Yusuke now regretted it very much. If he had tried to absorb natural energy through breathing as soon as he could sense natural energy, he might have been able to normalize the immortal mode and let his body evolve towards the immortal body. But it's not too late now. He is only 12 years old this year, and he has plenty of time to create his own breathing method. But the first step to be done now is to transform the chakra in the body into immortal chakra and store it all in the seal of the Sea of Chi. He did it right away. For the next period of time, Yusuke's daily work was to meditate and transform the chakra in his body. When his mental energy was almost exhausted, he would sleep in the cave of the White Snake. It was not until half a month later that the shadow clone in the ninja world was released and brought a message that Yusuke stopped the transformation of the chakra in his body. Opening his eyes, Yusuke felt the chakra in the Chi-Si seal, feeling somewhat helpless. I've been busy for half a month, but I've only converted half of the chakra. I don't know when I can complete the remaining half next time. Looking at the dozen or so shadow clones next to him who were perfecting their breathing and sage mode, Yusuke formed seals with his hands, used the summoning technique to return to the ninja world, and walked towards the gate of the village. As for those shadow clones, they stayed in the Ryochi cave. Soon, Yusuke arrived at the village entrance. Kizaburo, Kakashi, and the passerby were already waiting here. They were finally going out of the village to perform a mission. Other classes that graduated in the same year had already performed several C-level missions, but their class had been performing D-level missions for the 3 students' own reasons. Today was their first time to perform a mission outside the village. The mission was to go to the border of the Fire and Wind countries and eliminate the bandits hovering there. After getting this information, except for the passerby, the remaining 3 people knew in their hearts that this group of bandits was most likely the Sand Ninjas from the Sand Village in disguise, so they sent their team there. It is well known in the ninja world that the Wind Country has the largest land area, but the least resources, especially water and food, which are the 2 essential resources for survival. Therefore, the Sand Ninja often acts as bandits in the mountains near the border of the Fire Country, robbing the food and water resources of the nearby villages. Seeing Yusuke coming, Kizaburo said seriously, "Now that everyone is here, let's set off quickly. The details of the mission will be discussed on the way." The 3 nodded, turned into 3 afterimages and followed Kizaburo, heading towards the Wind Country. The forest under his feet kept retreating. Kakashi turned his head and looked at Yusuke, who looked relaxed beside him, but his heart couldn't stop trembling. He had only felt this situation in his angry father. This was the body's instinctive reaction when facing his inability to defeat his opponent. In the end, curiosity in his heart overcame fear, and he asked, "Yusuke, how did you do it? Your strength has improved so much in a short time." You know, in order to improve his strength and catch up with Yusuke, he has been exercising to exhaustion every day since graduation, but his strength has only improved a little, and Yusuke is obviously different from him, and his strength has obviously improved a lot. The passers-by also pricked up their ears, wanting to know how Yusuke became stronger. "You want to know?" Hearing this, Kakashi hadn't said anything yet, but the passers-by next to the 2 of them nodded their heads like rattles. Blindly practicing hard is not efficient. Sometimes you can achieve twice the result with half the effort by finding the right method or the right method. At this point, Yusuke turned to look at Kakashi and said, "Kakashi, although your practice during this period has been very effective, it has already hurt your body. If you continue like this for a long time, it will not be worth the loss." Kakashi frowned, obviously a little unhappy. "Why do you say that?" Yusuke said, 6 to 18 years old is the golden stage of human development. This stage is also the fastest stage for the growth of ninja strength. Basically, after this age, the progress of ninjas will slow down and it will be difficult to improve their strength. But Kakashi, you have practiced too much, and your body has been injured. You may not feel anything in the golden stage, but when you are older, there will be problems. If you really want to become stronger, after this mission is over, you and the passerby come to me, and I will train you personally. The leader Wei Saburo also nodded. Kakashi, Yusuke is right. There are too many ninjas who have practiced too much, which leads to a slow growth in strength after adulthood, or even a decline. This is also the reason why ninja schools focus on theoretical knowledge and generally graduate at the age of 12. That's why Konoha ninjas are generally stronger than other ninja villages. Hearing what Yusuke and Kizaburo said, Kakashi realized that he seemed to have overtrained, but a large part of the reason for his training method was that he wanted to be tired and not think about his father. After realizing his mistake, Kakashi also wanted to make changes. Looking at Yusuke, he remembered the useful technique before and said, "Okay, after this mission is over, I want to see how your method works. I promise you won't be disappointed." The surrounding environment slowly began to change. The originally dense forest had begun to transform into bushes. In the bushes, snakes, scorpions and other animals could be seen running away due to the actions of the few people. The queue of the 4 people also changed as they approached the mission location. Kizaburo was in the front, Yusuke was in the end, and Kakashi and the passerby were in the middle. Soon they could see a large sand hill with rows of clear houses on it. Kizaburo, who was running in the front, suddenly stopped and waved his hand. Yusuke and the other two gathered beside Kizaburo. Kizaburo took out a map, compared the surrounding environment with the sand hill ahead, and whispered, "Our mission target is ahead. Let's take a rest first, restore our chakras, and then start the action at night." "Yes, Yusuke, use your perception to check the surroundings and make sure there are no sand ninjas lying in ambush nearby." After hearing Kizaburo's order, Yusuke nodded and used the senjutsu chakra stored in his body to immediately enter the sage mode. The golden lines in his eyes spread to his brows and turned into a unique rock shape. With the unique perception ability of the sage mode open, Yusuke can sense any movement within a 10-mile radius. The reason why he used the senjutsu chakra stored in his body was because his sage mode was not perfect enough and he could not absorb the natural energy of the ninja world to enter the sage mode. Kizaburo was attracted by the rock-like lines on Yusuke's face. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Yusuke, are you in sage mode?" Yusuke nodded and continued to sense whether there were any enemies around. Hearing the answer he wanted, Kizaburo was shocked and said with emotion, "I didn't expect that besides Lord Jiraiya, there are other people who have also learned the sage mode. No wonder you have only spent a few months and your strength has increased so much." As a member of the Sarutobi clan, he has also heard of the existence of the sage mode, especially after Jiraiya successfully mastered the sage mode, which further confirmed the unparalleled combat effectiveness of the sage mode. A passerby who was eating a soldier pill asked curiously, "Teacher Kizaburo, what is the sage mode?" Kizaburo was stunned by the sudden question of the passerby, and said uncertainly, "I don't know this very well. There are few records of the sage mode in the ninja world. Even the Sarutobi clan doesn't have many. I only know that if you master the sage mode, you can use the energy of nature to fight, and the power is much stronger than ordinary ninjutsu. But you can ask Yusuke, he has mastered the sage mode now, he must know more than me." Hearing this, passerby and Kakashi turned their attention to Yusuke. There are no enemies around. Seeing that both of them were looking at him, Yusuke knew that he had to explain to them. He first explained the situation around him, then he exited the sage mode and explained, as Mr. Kizaburo said, in addition to chakra, there is a special energy in nature, that is, natural energy. The so-called sage mode is to master the integration of this natural energy into chakra, thereby comprehensively enhancing the power of physical skills, ninjutsu, and illusion. It is a state that can bring about a qualitative change. Yusuke simply told a few people his understanding of the sage mode, and for ease of understanding, he said it simply and directly. After explaining, Yusuke took out food from the sealed wristband to prepare to cook and rest, but was held down by Kizaburo's arm, and then heard Kizaburo's slightly angry voice. "Yusuke, we are close to our destination. For our safety, we can't let you cook food as before." Hearing this, Yusuke was stunned for a moment, silently sealed the ingredients in his hand into the wrist guard of his right hand, took out a few food pills and threw them into his mouth to replenish his consumed physical strength. He knew that Kizaburo was right. Ninjas were not ordinary people. They had a lot of reconnaissance methods to find clues left by the enemy. The simplest and most effective one was the ninja dog. They could smell different smells and track them from several kilometers or even more than 10 kilometers away. It was really dangerous to cook rashly. As night fell, the sky became dim. Yusuke, who had entered the sage mode, led the way in front and groped towards the direction of the sand mountain. On the way, he accurately located the sand ninja hidden in the dark. Kakashi, at 9 o'clock, between several huge rocks 500 meters away, there is a genin hiding. Teacher Kizaburo, at the 2 o'clock direction, there are two ninjas lying in the bushes using transformation techniques. With Yusuke's precise positioning, Kakashi and Kizaburo perfectly demonstrated what assassination means. They quietly moved behind these people, twisted their necks, and ended the lives of these sand ninjas. This stunned the weak passers-by. Soon the four of them dealt with the nearby sand ninjas and arrived at the village under the sand mountain. This is the grass fruit village. Most of the nearby residents make a living by growing grass fruit, so the village got its name from this. It was already late when the four entered the village, but because most of the houses collapsed, there were still a few people on the street huddled in the corners of the houses, wearing thin and worn clothes, with yellow faces and thin muscles, like ribs. This situation is almost impossible in the land of fire, which is rich in resources. Even in the border areas, residents cannot even have enough food. After seeing the dress of Yusuke and the other four, these people were full of fear in their eyes and huddled tighter, obviously not trusting the existence of ninjas. Kizaburo gnashed his teeth and said those sand ninjas. He was certain that this place had become like this because the sand ninjas had taken away all the food and money in the village. If this village was like this, I'm afraid the other villages around it would be like this too. The same is true for the village. Yusuke sighed inwardly. This is the border between the wind and fire countries, and it is very far away from Konoha village. They don't have satellites that can achieve ultra-long distance communication, so they can only rely on people or animals. But even if the ninjas move at full speed, it will take a day or two, not to mention these villagers who have no self-protection ability. Moreover, there are obstacles from the sand ninjas. In order to prevent Konoha from discovering their actions, they are afraid that all people and animals that may spread the information will be wiped out before leaving the village. This is also the reason why Konoha has not discovered it yet. Our goal this time is to kill all the sand ninjas nearby. We must teach those sand ninjas a lesson and let them know that Konoha is not easy to mess with. Hearing this, Yusuke complained in his heart. Just because they won the World War II and didn't ask Sarutobi Hiruzen to pay compensation, it already shows that Konoha is very easy to mess with. As long as you are a little stronger, Sarutobi Hiruzen will choose to tolerate it. However, Yusuke only thought about this in his mind and would not really say it out loud. Kizaburo quickly worked out an action plan. Yusuke also agreed with this plan, which was the most suitable at the moment. As a senior Jonin, his experience was not comparable to that of Yusuke, a ninja who had not performed many missions. But before that, just in case, I'd better engrave the mark of Flying Thunder God on the passerby first. Thinking of this, Shangsuke walked to the side of the passerby and imprinted the mark of Flying Thunder God on the back of the passerby's hand. Looking at the beautiful word, handsome, on the back of his hand, the passerby kept shaking his hands with a look of disgust, and couldn't help complaining, "Shangsuke, you are really narcissistic. Not only did you print it on the house next door, but you also printed it on the back of my hand. Not only you, Kakashi, you have to seal it too. This thing is still very useful at the critical moment." Rolling his eyes, Yusuke looked at the passerby unhappily, weak but still talkative. It was really speechless. During the mission, Yusuke didn't want to explain too much, turned around and came to Kakashi's side. Kakashi hadn't reacted yet, and a Flying Thunder God seal also appeared on the back of his hand. Compared to the passerby who knew nothing, Kakashi, who had a family background in learning, guessed that this was the Flying Thunder God seal, but he didn't have much resistance in his heart, and accepted Yusuke's temporary engraving of the Flying Thunder God seal on the back of his hand. After getting ready, the four of them immediately took action. Shaw, shaw, a black shadow passed by, and the bushes swayed slightly, making a slight sound. The black shadow moved rapidly towards the top of the mountain. Under the cover of night, the sand ninja patrolling in the distance did not notice anything at all. The black shadow was Yusuke. He was the strongest among the four. With the Sage mode, his strength had firmly reached the level of Kage, so he was arranged by Kisaburo to go straight to Wonglong and kill the Jonin disguised as a bandit. Yusuke's Sage mode was created by the natural energy of Earth attribute, so he could feel all the information within a radius of 10 miles through the pulse of the Earth, and easily and silently avoid the patrolling ninjas. Taking advantage of the opportunity when the sand ninja turned around, Yusuke used the Earth escape method to enter the mountain village from underground. As soon as he sneaked into the cottage, Shangsuke heard the slightly miserable gasps of a girl coming from the brightest room. It was obvious that she was doing that kind of thing. No wonder there are no young women in the village, they are probably all here. Hearing the voice, Yusuke instantly understood where all the young women in the village had gone. This is the ninja world, not the relatively peaceful world of his previous life. Villagers without strength can only be slaughtered. Ninjas are not good people. The way the three countries of wind, earth, and water cultivate ninjas has made ninjas extremely cold-blooded. In the eyes of many ninjas without bottom lines, life can be deprived at will, not to mention things like raping young girls. At this time, Yusuke's heart was filled with anger. The education in his previous life made it impossible for him to be indifferent to such things, but he did not move, because he knew that if he took action now, it was very likely that these sand ninjas would immediately rise up and kill the girls. He would only have a chance when Kakashi and others made a noise outside the village and attracted the attention of these sand ninjas. Carefully moving his figure to the bottom of the room, Yusuke began to wait for the actions of Kakashi and others. Boom! An explosion sounded, followed by a burst of flames that shot up into the sky, and the red light illuminated the sky for half a day. Enemy attack! It's Konoha's ninja! Quick! The Konoha ninjas are coming, we must keep them here. Wind style. Komedachi technique. For a moment, the whole village was in chaos. The ninjas who were resting woke up and rushed to the location of the fire. Of course, they were also afraid of being lured away by the enemy, so some of them were still on guard in the village. Konoha ninja, why come at this time instead of earlier? A Jonin in the room climbed up from the three girls while cursing, and reached out to pick up the human-shaped object wrapped in bandages placed aside, and skillfully untied the bandages, revealing a puppet made of wood and metal inside. Obviously, this Jonin was a rare puppeteer among the sand ninja. The puppet looked like a huge tiger, with all kinds of bone spurs all over its body, and its tail was a sharp long knife, faintly flashing with purple dirt, obviously poisoned. There were two other Jonin nearby who climbed up from the pile of girls, looked at the only puppeteer, and said in a deep voice, "Captain Yuya, you have the ghost tiger, and your combat power exceeds that of ordinary Jonin. This village is handed over to you to prevent the Konoha ninja from luring the tiger away from the mountain. I'll leave the Konoha ninjas outside in your care." Hi. The two nodded, turned into two afterimages and flew towards the place of the battle. Earth style. Earth spear. As soon as the two sand village Jonins left, a cold low shout came from underground, which made the sand village puppeteer Captain Yuya's face change drastically. He quickly controlled the ghost tiger to cushion himself and jumped up himself. Boom! The next moment, violent chakra erupted from the ground, the wooden structure of the room broke, and black conical stone pillars with a metallic luster emerged from the ground, densely covering the entire room, like a thorn bush. Puff! The stone pillar continued to rise, like a string, piercing through Yuya's body and shattering the puppet called Ghost Tiger, turning it into fragments all over the sky. The two sand ninja Jonins who had just run less than 10 meters away heard the sound behind them, turned around and looked at the room that was pierced by black stone pillars like surrounded by thorns, and exclaimed, "Captain Yuya! Stop shouting, I'll send you two to accompany your captain now." Yusuke's cold voice sounded again, and then he slowly emerged from the ground in front of the two sand ninjas' sight. The violent chakra immediately made the two of them feel frightened, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Although they were afraid, the two of them looked Yusuke up and down, collecting information and comparing it with the intelligence in their minds to confirm Yusuke's identity. However, whether it was from his dress or the empty intelligence in their minds, they came to only one conclusion. That is, the Konoha ninja in front of them is a genin. But how is this possible? The violent chakra fluctuations of the Konoha ninja in front of them are not comparable to those of ordinary jonin. In their impression, it seems that only the third Kazekage is like this. "Konoha ninja, where is our captain? You said that puppet master is dead." Yusuke sneered, the anger in his eyes did not decrease at all. The attack just now was a fairy technique performed with anger. The stone pillar of the Tulong spear is harder and sharper than steel. How can a mere sand ninja Jonin resist it? After hearing what Yusuke said, the two of them looked even more terrified. Without any hesitation, they used the instant body technique and fled in two different directions. Earth escape technique. Earth spike. Yusuke stepped on the ground, and two earth spears shot out from the ground, piercing the two sand ninjas like lightning. Bang! The two were both Jonin after all, and they noticed Yusuke's attack the moment he attacked. They quickly used their own skills to dodge Yusuke's attack. Great, I dodged it. Puff! After dodging Yusuke's attack, the two of them immediately showed joy on their faces, feeling lucky that they had escaped. When is it? The next moment, they felt a pain in their chests. When they looked down, they saw black spikes coming out of their chests. They looked incredulous and their eyes went dark before they could finish their words. Two 10-meter-long spikes appeared on the ground behind them, piercing through their bodies. "Trash, you still want to escape from me?" Yusuke sneered disdainfully. These three Jonins had long been on his kill list. How could he let them escape? He began to plan long before he killed Captain Yuya, using words and momentum to attract the attention of the two, and then let the shadow clone hide not far behind the two, and under the terrifying perception of the Sage Mode, carry out precise and fatal attacks. After killing the 3 Jonins, Yusuke's shadow clone hidden in the dark no longer hid, and began to frantically hunt down the sand ninjas in the village. Wherever they went, the sand ninjas were pierced by earth spikes and split in half by the Kusanagi sword. Yusuke's real body first cut off the heads of the 3 Jonins, sealed them with a sealing scroll, and then turned and walked towards the previous house. With every step, the rock pillars that pierced the house shrank back into the ground. When Changsuk walked into the house, the stone forest that was like a thorn forest had shrunk back, revealing 9 young and beautiful girls protected by the stone pillars. These girls were still confused at this time. The stone pillars that suddenly shot out from the ground just now locked them tightly. Then they heard a cold voice outside. After a while, the stone pillars shrank back, and a handsome boy appeared in front of them. Changsuk took out more than a dozen sets of clothes from the ceiling wristband and threw them in front of these girls. He said coldly, "We have dealt with the sand ninja in the mountain village. You guys put on your clothes, rescue the other captured villagers, and go back. After we complete our mission, you can divide the food in this mountain village among the surrounding villages." After that, Changsuk didn't wait for these people to reply, turned around and walked towards the battlefield outside the mountain village. There were flashes of fire and lightning, and it was obvious that Kisaburo and the other 2 were still fighting hard. I didn't expect there would be a Jonin. This sand ninja is so courageous. If I weren't here, any ninja team coming here would be in vain, unless they send the Anbu to wipe them out. If it really comes to that, I guess these sand ninjas would have left long ago. The more Yusuke thought about it, the more he was amazed at the generosity of the sand village. Even a task of disguising as a bandit and collecting food supplies can be assigned 4 Jonin, more than a dozen Chunins, and even more Genins. This configuration can launch a war against some small countries. But think about it, the sand ninja has scarce food resources, and the number of ninjas is the least among the 5 major ninja villages. Every ninja is a treasure of the sand ninja. Many times, due to insufficient resources, they launched wars against Konoha and surrounding small countries to snatch food resources. Although the ninjas in the village have been dealt with by him, there is still a Jonin and several Chunins outside the village. It is estimated that they will not be able to hold on for long, so Yusuke also speeded up. As for passers-by, Yusuke subconsciously ignored them. At the same time, not far from the village, Kisaburo spewed out various fire escape ninjutsu from his mouth, and cooperated with physical skills to fight against a Jonin and 5 Chunins. The information is wrong, there are so many ninjas. Kisaburo cursed the Anbu who was collecting information in his heart. Although he was stronger than the opposite sand ninja Jonin, the opposite Jonin had 5 Chunin to assist him. He could only barely protect himself and could not care about Kakashi and the passerby who were fighting hard beside him. Kakashi was fine, he had the strength of a Chunin at the peak and could barely fight against 3 Chunins. He could still hold on for a while, but the passerby was different. Under Kizaburo's training, his strength barely reached the peak of Genin. He was seriously injured at the moment and it would be estimated that he would be killed soon. Yusuke, hurry up, if you don't come soon, the 3 of us will die here. Kizaburo was extremely anxious. He tried to rescue passers-by many times but was stopped by the Sand Ninja's Jonin. The Sand Ninja Jonin dodged the fire release and used the instant body technique to come in front of Kizaburo. He started to fight with him using physical techniques, and at the same time he used words to interfere with Kizaburo's emotions. You are kidding me, you still want to save people in front of me. There are 4 people in your team, and one of you has sneaked into the village. It's a pity that there are 3 Jonin in the village, and each of them is stronger than me. I'm afraid they are dead now. Quote, hearing this, Kizaburo's expression remained unchanged. These sand ninjas didn't know Yusuke's strength, so how could he not know? They could easily crush him when he was exerting his full strength before they realized the Sage Mode, not to mention that now that he had realized the Sage Mode, they were just 3 Jonin, just chickens and pottery dogs. The next second, 2 black lights flashed, and Yusuke and his shadow clone suddenly appeared next to Kakashi and the passers-by. Their right hands were as black as ink, in the shape of a hand knife, and they cut off his head in the horrified eyes of the sand ninjas. Then the black light kept flashing, and wherever it passed, except for the sand ninja Jonin who was fighting with Kizaburo, the heads of the rest of the sand ninjas were cut off by Yusuke using the hand knife. Before more than a dozen sand ninjas could react, their bodies turned into fountains of blood, dyeing this small piece of land red. The flashing black light was not the flying thunder god, but the incomparable speed that Yusuke erupted through the sage mode. It was only because the speed was too fast that the naked eye could not keep up, so it seemed like a black light. Teacher Kizaburo has left you a Jonin, you can solve it yourself. Well, I just happen to have a lot of things to say. Izaburo nodded, clasped his hands together, his finger bones were pinched and made a snapping sound, a strange smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he walked towards the sand ninja's Jonin. Don't come over here. The sand ninja looked at Izaburo with fear, felt his anus tighten, and instinctively stepped back. Go to hell. Fire style. Great flame technique. Seeing that the sand ninja wanted to escape, Kizaburo shouted and started with Sarutobi Hiruzen's signature ninjutsu that had been passed down for 100 years. Flames spewed out of his mouth and turned into a wave of fire that swept towards the opposite sand ninja. Ignoring Kizaburo who was venting his anger, Yusuke and his shadow clone flashed in front of Kakashi and the passerby, and said proudly, "See, I told you that this mark works." Hearing this, Kakashi rolled his eyes, and the passerby saw Yusuke and relaxed. The fatigue caused by the serious injury made him faint instantly, and he didn't hear what Yusuke said at all. The responses of the two made Yusuke embarrassed, but he was thick-skinned and recovered to normal in an instant. He came to the two and used the palm fairy technique to heal their injuries. Kakashi looked at the emerald green light on Yusuke's hand and sighed. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, sage mode, and now medical ninjutsu, I really don't know what else you don't know. Yusuke said casually without even raising his head, I don't know how to give birth to a child. Kakashi. Seeing Kakashi's constipated expression, Yusuke smiled awkwardly and said, just kidding. I'm not very good at illusions. No matter how I perform, I can't make people fall into illusions silently. Kakashi nodded, but he also understood the meaning of Yusuke's words, that is, he was not good at using illusions, but he should be very good at resisting illusions. After a while, the two saw Kizaburo coming over with a head, and said to them with a smile, mission accomplished. It's time to go back to Konoha. Yusuke smiled and threw the scroll with the 3 Jonin's heads sealed in it to Kizaburo, saying, Teacher, these are the heads of the 3 Jonin in the village. Taking them back should allow those guys in the Anbu to search for some useful information. Let's go. Uesaburo nodded, sealed the head in his hand, carried the unconscious passerby on his back, and the 4 of them rushed towards Konoha. The speed of going back was relatively slow, but it took 2 days to return to Konoha village. During this period, the passerby also woke up. Maybe because he had walked between life and death, he was very silent along the way, no longer the talkative appearance before. After entering Konoha, the 4 went to the Hokage's office to report. Listening to Uesaburo's story, especially hearing that there were 4 Jonin and more than a dozen Chunins of the Sand Ninja configuration, Sarutobi Hiruzen was also scared out of his wits. It was obvious that there was a problem with the intelligence. After just thinking about it, he guessed who was behind it, and his heart was suddenly filled with anger. Normally, he would use his means to suppress ninjas from other families, but now he dares to lay his hands on the masters of Konoha. Ever since returning from Orochimaru, Sarutobi Hiruzen understood that Yusuke's rise in Konoha was unstoppable. He had decided to befriend Yusuke and pave the way for the future of Konoha, so he would not allow anyone to lay hands on Yusuke. Danzo's means had touched his bottom line. It's just that he did not expect Yusuke to rise so fast. Not only did he master the Sage mode, but his strength also reached the level of Kage. Fortunately, his clansmen did not suffer any losses, and they successfully suppressed the prestige and strength of the Sand Ninja. The loss of 4 Jonin and more than a dozen Chunins at one time would give even the Sand Ninjas of the 5 major ninja villages a headache for a while. Thank you for your hard work. I have understood the situation. The mission level of Team 10 this time has been adjusted from B level to S level. You can go down and have a rest first. Having finished the report, Sarutobi Hiruzen asked the Anbu members to take the seal scroll from Kizaburo's hand, and watched Yusuke walk out of the office. After leaving the office, Yusuke stretched and planned to go back to rest, and then go to Raichi Cave to continue transforming the chakra in his body. Suddenly, Kakashi grabbed Yusuke and reminded him, "Don't forget, you said you would take us to train when you come back." Hearing this, Yusuke reacted and realized that he seemed to have said that, so he said, "Then let's rest for 3 days first. 3 days later, I will make a training plan for you at the cliff in the back mountain of Konoha." "Okay, then see you in 3 days." After making an agreement, the three of them went home to report their safety. In the Hokage's office, Sarutobi Hiruzen did not pay attention to the information in the minds of the 4 sand ninjas, but took out the sealed book, looked at the part about Yusuke's theory, and kept muttering, "The sage mode has been successful, which means that Yusuke has reached the 3rd stage of his theory, which completely confirms the possibility of this theory. It seems that this theory also needs to be distributed to Konoha's Jonin to practice." As a doctor in the ninja world, Sarutobi Hiruzen also has an incomparable wealth of theoretical knowledge of ninjutsu. When he got Yusuke's practice theory, he saw that the real qualitative change was the 3rd stage, but he also knew the difficulty of practicing the sage mode. Jiraiya got the summoning scroll of Myoboku Mountain when he was very young, but it was not until now that he could complete the sage mode with the help of 2 sages. However, Yusuke's success at this time also proved that the first 2 stages were very helpful in practicing the sage mode, and he was ready to practice. After all, everyone has a long life and strength, and he is no exception. He still wants to work in the position of Hokage for a few more years. At the same time, in the root base, Danzo looked at the Anbu members below and said, "Really? Akamichi Yusuke is back as expected. The sand ninjas are a bunch of trash, they can't even deal with a 12-year-old kid like me. Also, notify the intelligence team to send the news that Yusuke Akamichi killed 4 Jonins and a dozen Chunins of the sand ninja, remember?" The 3-day rest time passed in a flash, and Yusuke came to the back mountain as promised. The scenery here is very beautiful, with a lake around and a 300-meter high cliff, which is very suitable for training. Kakashi and Lu Ren have been waiting here for a long time, especially Lu Ren. The determination in his eyes are unprecedented, which shows that this life and death experience has made him grow a lot. Seeing Yusuke, Kakashi couldn't wait to ask, "Yusuke, how should we train?" "Don't worry, I'll buff you 2 first, and then you 2 just climb the cliff according to the technique I told you last time." After saying that, in the curious eyes of the 2, he put his hands on the 2 people, and dense sealing magicians spread around the 2 people, turning them into black people, completely suppressing the chakra in the body, not letting it overflow. After sensing the status of the 2 people and finding that there was no problem, he patted their shoulders, pointed to the cliff in the distance and smiled, "Now you can climb." This state where chakra will not overflow, the 2 people felt very uncomfortable and awkward. Kakashi frowned slightly and said, "In this way, our chakra can't reach the surface of the body, and it can't assist our rock climbing. The rock climbing of ninjas is very different from that of ordinary people. Just like climbing a tree, it requires the mobilization of chakra for assistance. The only difference is that climbing a tree only relies on the feet, while rock climbing requires the participation of all 4 limbs." Now that Yusuke has locked their chakras firmly in his body, the auxiliary effect of chakras is gone. It is very difficult to climb a cliff more than 300 meters high with only the body. As if hearing the worry in Kakashi's words, Yusuke smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will separate 2 shadow clones to wait under the cliff. If you can't catch it, I will ensure your safety." In order to reassure the 2, Yusuke immediately separated 2 shadow clones and asked them to wait under the cliff. Seeing this, Kakashi and the passerby walked to the cliff and began to observe the situation of the cliff. Without the assistance of chakra, the 2 of them had to choose a good route to climb the 300-meter high cliff, otherwise they would be stuck in the air, which would be really dangerous. Ninjas have strong intelligence collection capabilities, so it didn't take long for the 2 to find a route to climb the cliff and start climbing. While the 2 were climbing, Yusuke also started his own training. He now had enough senjutsu chakra in his body, and he had successfully tried to use senjutsu chakra to nourish his body and soul. Instantly entering the sage mode, Yusuke moved a huge stone from the side, put it on his back, and began to do frog jump exercises. As the amount of exercise increased, the pure senjutsu chakra circulated in the body, was absorbed by the 6 internal organs, and converted into energy, substances and nutrients for the body to absorb. Yusuke only felt that his body was unusually comfortable, as if he had endless energy, and the intensity of the exercise was constantly increasing. Boom, boom. The ground was shaking continuously, and Kakashi and passers-by who had climbed dozens of meters on the cliff could feel it. They turned their heads to the direction of the shaking below, and were immediately shocked, because the mountain-like boulder on Yusuke's body was really exaggerated. Is this the intensity of your training? No wonder your strength is growing so fast. Seeing Yusuke's training method, Kakashi and the passerby looked even more determined, looked at each other, and climbed to the top of the mountain even faster. Senjutsu chakra is better than I thought for the body's nourishment. In a short period of time, my physical fitness has improved more than the previous month's training, and even the strength of my soul is slowly increasing. The morning passed quickly, and Yusuke stopped training because of hunger. His current body cannot allow Yusuke to absorb energy alone, and he must supplement the various elements lacking in his body through food. Calling Kakashi and the passerby who were already sweating and exhausted, Yusuke and the other two soon came to the Chinese pavilion. Today, the Chinese pavilion is the most famous restaurant in Konoha and even the entire ninja world. If you want to enter the restaurant to eat, you must make an appointment. Of course, as the son of the boss, Yusuke still has privileges. He has his own exclusive box. He asked the waiter to bring 2 large tables of food, and the 3 of them began to devour it. After a while, the 2 tables of food were finished by the 3 of them. Looking at Kakashi and the passerby who were slumped in the chairs with their stomachs held, Yusuke smiled and asked, "How was the training today?" The passerby was weak, and the feeling was not particularly obvious, but Kakashi could clearly feel the changes in himself. After thinking for a while, he said, "The effect is good." During the training process, chakra can actively participate in the strengthening of the body, making the training more efficient. I never thought that locking the chakra completely in the body would have such an effect. Yusuke, I have persisted in such high-intensity training for 6 years. Now you know why I am so strong. Kakashi and the passerby nodded to show their understanding. Yusuke took out 2 scrolls and pushed them in front of the 2. He had prepared them in advance, and whispered, "This is my first stage theory. It contains the use and unlocking methods of the seals I put on you. Go back and read it carefully, and then you will start practicing according to this theory." Kakashi picked up the scroll on the table, frowned slightly and said, "You mean you won't train with us next?" "That's right." Yusuke nodded and did not deny, "My training has long passed this stage. Now my focus should be on the sage mode and the conversion of chakra in my body, so I can't accompany you to train." After speaking, Yusuke looked at the 2 of them with a serious expression. Kakashi and the passerby also knew in their hearts that it was impossible for the 2 of them to let Yusuke stop his training because of their own training, so they had already made psychological preparations in their hearts. Besides, they still have Yusuke's training theory in their hands, and now they don't need Yusuke's company, so after just thinking about it, the 2 nodded, "Okay." The goal was achieved, and Yusuke walked out of the Zonghua pavilion contentedly and walked towards the Senju clan. He got the news that Minato Namikaze had completed the mission and had returned, and was now accompanying Kushina in the Senju clan. As soon as he walked into the villa in the middle of the clan's land, Yusuke saw Minato Namikaze coming out of the kitchen wearing an apron and carrying a few dishes. Seeing Yusuke, Minato Namikaze also greeted with a smile, "Yusuke, you came at the right time, come and have dinner together." "Yes, come and eat with us. How about trying the dishes made by little son? Are they as good as yours?" At the table, Kushina also called him to come over quickly. "Okay." Yusuke nodded and did not refuse. After practicing the 6 treasury sage chakra version, he could eat a lot of food even if he had just eaten. As for the food made by Minato, he could only let him taste it. After eating a little, Yusuke put down his chopsticks. After the meal, Namikaze Minato looked at Yusuke and said, "Kushina told me about your situation. I also asked the people at Myoboku Mountain for you. They agreed that you should sign the scroll of Myoboku Mountain." "Really? That's great." Yusuke didn't expect it to be so smooth. With the summoning scroll of Myoboku Mountain, he can go to Myoboku Mountain and refer to the sage mode there to improve his breathing method and sage mode, which will be of great benefit to his growth. Namikaze Minato smiled, then went to the room to take out the summoning scroll of Myoboku Mountain. Yusuke picked up the brush and signed his name behind Namikaze Minato's name. After signing, Yusuke and Namikaze Minato sat on the sofa beside them and started to communicate, but it was mainly Yusuke who was talking and Namikaze Minato was listening, and by the way, he gave Yusuke suggestions. I didn't expect that you, Yusuke, have already mastered your own sage mode. Compared to you, I am far inferior. At present, I have only barely completed the Chi-Si seal, and the sage mode can only last for 3 seconds. After listening to Yusuke's story about his mission experience, Minato Namikaze also sighed. However, his words made Yusuke's mouth twitch. As expected of the original work, he was not good at the sage mode but could open it in seconds. As for the Chi-Si seal, Yusuke practiced for more than 6 years without distraction. While he was doing the mission and dating Kushina, Minato Namikaze successfully completed the Chi-Si seal in such a short time, and could maintain the sage mode for 3 seconds. I really don't know how to complain. After leaving the Senju clan, Yusuke said something to his family, and then performed the reverse summoning technique to Myoboku Mountain. Compared with the damp and dark environment of Ryochi Cave, the environment of Myoboku Mountain is much more beautiful, with mountains, rivers, forests, and some ponds with lotus flowers, and various insects flying over them from time to time. There are some tadpoles swimming freely in the pond. I don't know what the environment of the wet-bone forest is like. Then he remembered that the spirit beast of the wet-bone forest is a slug, also known as a slug. Yusuke couldn't help but shudder and quickly denied, "No, it's definitely not good." The environment of the 3 holy places corresponds to the living environment of the 3 animals. The living environment of toads and snakes is okay, but the living environment of a slimy creature like a slug is disgusting. You are the one who will change the ninja world that the great toad sage mentioned. You don't look special, do you? At this moment, a voice came from below Yusuke. Yusuke lowered his head and looked in the direction of the voice. He found that there was a small light green toad under his feet. The toad was about 20 centimeters tall, wearing a purple windbreaker, with white hair between his eyebrows, and wrinkled skin. It looked old. The toad was one of the 2 great sages of Myoboku Mountain, Fukasaku sage. You are the immortal Fukasaku. It's me. Fukasaku looked at Yusuke and nodded with satisfaction, then turned and walked towards the stone forest in the distance. Follow me. Yusuke hurriedly followed. As they walked, Fukasaku explained to Yusuke. A few weeks ago, the great toad sage suddenly called us and said that the future of the ninja world had undergone tremendous changes. There would be a person who would revolutionize the ninja world and raise it to an unexpected height, and would descend on Myoboku Mountain not long after that. Yusuke showed a look of sudden realization. So that's it. It's because the changes caused by me, the butterfly, were predicted by the great toad sage in a dream. He is indeed a terrifying toad. But why doesn't he give Naruto hints in the future like he did to Jiraiya, so that he can get through some crises? The man and the toad soon arrived at the stone forest, which was full of sharp stone spikes. If they fell from above, ordinary people would definitely be stabbed to death. The stone forest was where Naruto learned meditation in the original work. Next to the stone forest, Fukasaku turned around and said, "The great toad sage said that all the immortal arts and resources of Myoboku Mountain are open to you. I can see that your foundation in cultivation is very solid. I guess you have been meditating during your daily practice, right?" "That's right. How did you figure that out, Fukasaku-senin?" Yusuke was a little confused. It is because of the mental power and state of mind. If you want to complete the practice of the sage mode, you must have a strong mental power and a mind as quiet as the sky. Only in this way can you absorb the energy that suits you in the chaotic natural energy. And I can feel a faint trace of the sage mode from you, so I said that. After explaining, Fukasaku took out a wooden board from the side and threw it towards the stone forest. The board landed steadily on one of the stone cones, steadily without a trace of shaking. What a strong control! He was able to place such a large piece of wood steadily on the needle-like tip of the stone. Yusuke's pupils shrank. It was already very difficult to place the wood on the needle tip without it falling. Fukasaku actually threw it up with force. This was almost impossible. You don't need to be too surprised. This is the effect of the state of mind. Your mental strength is sufficient, but your state of mind is indeed quite poor. What you need to do next is to make up for the poor state of mind. At this point, Fukasaku pointed to the wooden board on the stone cone and said, your next practice is to live on this wooden board. When you can do whatever you do without falling off, you can do the following practice. Hearing this, Yusuke nodded quickly, and then walked to the wooden stake according to the method taught by Fukasaku and began to meditate. Time passed bit by bit. After an incense stick, Yusuke woke up from his meditation. As soon as he relaxed his mind, he felt the wooden board under his buttocks began to shake. He immediately wanted to stabilize his body, but the more he tried to do so, the more the wooden board shook, and he fell directly downwards. Bang! Yusuke fell directly on his face. Fukasaku, who was standing by, saw Yusuke fall down, but he didn't show any sympathy. Instead, he smiled, as if he had expected this to happen. Ouch! Shangsuke covered his face and cried out in pain. Ha ha, ha ha ha. At this time, Fukasaku's voice came. Yusuke's face was full of black lines. He picked up the wooden board from the side, used chakra to climb onto the stone cone, and carefully laid the wooden board flat. It took him hundreds of times to successfully put it flat. Then he took a deep breath, entered a state of meditation, sat on the wooden board and continued to practice. Time passed bit by bit. Yusuke felt that all the muscles in his body were trembling. He even heard the crackling of bones. His heart was pounding, as if it might jump out at any time. A frown appeared on his forehead. Beads of sweat formed on his face, and he felt a little uneasy. What's wrong? I just sat on the board for a while. As soon as this feeling of uneasiness arose, Yusuke was dragged down by the board again. Fukasaku watched with great interest and said with a smile, this is caused by your distracting thoughts. Meditation on the board will make you subconsciously want to stabilize the board, so the muscles, bones and even the 5 internal organs of the whole body are working in this direction, so you will feel the muscles trembling and the bones creaking. Hearing this, Yusuke nodded, climbed up the stone cone again, put the board on it and started practicing. This state cannot be achieved once or twice. You need to practice more and wait for the body to adapt, and then you will slowly eliminate this distracting thought. As for Naruto, that is a pure heart, and he naturally has an advantage in the state of mind, which Yusuke can't compare with. Since he doesn't have the advantage of Naruto, Yusuke will try to reach the same level in other ways. Chapter 31. Yusuke was still immersed in training at Myoboku Mountain. On the other side, at the entrance of Konoha village, Kizaburo checked the time and said, hasn't Yusuke come back yet? Kakashi said, he can't come back, and even the news can't be passed on. The only people in Konoha who have the Myoboku Mountain summoning scroll are Jiraiya and Minato Namikaze, but they are not in Konoha now, so there is no way to notify Yusuke. This brat, he is almost on a mission but is still training at Myoboku Mountain. Kizaburo cursed, but he had no other choice, so he said helplessly, forget it, let's go on the mission with the 3 of us. Fortunately, the mission this time was not difficult, and the absence of Yusuke would not have much impact. 2 days later, in a forest on the border of the Land of Fire, Kizaburo looked at the old man in front of him with a serious expression, turned to look at Kakashi, and said, Kakashi, this is Ebizo from the Sand Village, we are not his opponent, it will be difficult for us to complete this mission, you go and rescue the passerby and then we will run. Kakashi's face was extremely ugly. As soon as they came here to do the mission, they were ambushed by Ebizo and the sand ninjas who were buried in the dark. He and Kizaburo were powerful and barely avoided the attack. But the passerby, whose strength had just broken through the Chunin, did not react in time, and was seriously injured by the sand ninjas led by Ebizo and captured. Although he wondered why the sand ninjas did not kill the passerby, thinking of his father's experience, Kakashi did not want to give up the mission in his heart. As for the passerby, he could only say, sorry. Seeing that Kakashi was still alert and didn't move at all, Saburo couldn't help but scolded, Kakashi, what are you still standing there for, go and save the passers-by. Hatred flashed in Ebizo's eyes, and he said disdainfully, the ninja named Kakashi made the right choice. With his strength, he is no match for the team I led. By the way, your team should have 4 people. In addition to the one we captured, where is the other one? Saburo's pupils shrank slightly, and he questioned, Ebizo, you are for Yusuke. This is impossible. During the last mission, all the sand ninjas were killed by us. There is no way that the news would leak out. How did you know? Hearing this, the hatred in Ebizo's eyes could no longer be hidden, and he sneered, of course it was your Konoha ninja who told us. Tell me, where is that Yusuke? He actually dared to kill 4 of our sand ninja Jonins and more than a dozen Chunins. Thinking of this, Ebizo's heart was bleeding. 4 Jonin, a dozen Chunins and a large number of Genins, these were the backbone of the sand village, and they were all killed by Yusuke at once. This time they came to ambush Kizaburo's team. The third Kazekage asked him, an elite Jonin, and 3 Jonin based on the intelligence he got, with the purpose of coming and killing Yusuke. But he didn't expect that there were only Kizaburo and 3 others, and the target Yusuke was not there. Hearing this, Kizaburo's pupils shrank slightly. He didn't think Ebizo would lie. He really couldn't imagine that there would be spies in Konoha. Until this moment, Kizaburo didn't expect that the one who delivered the message to the sand village would be his Hokage advisor Danzo. Seeing Kizaburo didn't speak, the murderous intent in Ebizo's eyes became more and more obvious. At this time, the perception ninja of the sand village came over and said in Ebizo's ear, Lord Ebizo, no chakra reaction is sensed within a radius of 10 miles. The ninja named Yusuke is not here. Ebizo nodded and understood. Looking at the vigilant Kizaburo, he smiled and said, it seems that the genin named Yusuke did not come with you to complete the mission. In this case, you 3 don't have to stay. After speaking, he waved his hand, and the sand ninja Anbu who were ambushing in the dark rushed towards Kizaburo and Kakashi. At the same time, behind a big tree not far from Kakashi, a man wearing a black windbreaker and a bamboo hat was looking at the sand ninja in the distance with cold eyes. Seeing that the sand ninja had already taken action, he sighed and said, it seems that I have to take action. As soon as the words fell, a kunai appeared in the man's hand, and the whole man rushed out with a flash of lightning. Just as Ebizo and others took action, they suddenly saw a flash of lightning in the distance. The next moment, the lightning rushed in front of Kakashi and split a sand ninja who attacked Kakashi into 2 halves. Lightning blade. With a low chuckle, the lightning on the kunai in the hand of the man wearing the bamboo hat began to flash, and then gathered together, turning into a white energy short knife, and began to attack the sand ninja. Ebizo frowned, and his hands moved quickly. He took out a kunai and rushed towards the newcomer. The wind attribute chakra covered it, and it was difficult to resist the lightning short knife. Crack! A crisp sound rang out, and the kunai in Ebizo's hand was split into 2 halves. The cut was as smooth as a mirror, which showed the sharpness of the lightning blade of the man in the bamboo hat in front of him. Ebizo covered the wound on his chest with his hand and said with a grim expression, who are you? The previous blow not only cut off the kunai, but also cut open his chest, and it almost cut open his heart and took his life. The man in the bamboo hat did not answer Ebizo's question, but picked up the lightning blade that the kunai in his hand had transformed into. Sure enough, you are still not skilled enough. You didn't kill him with 1 blow. Kakashi in the distance stared at the man blankly, with waves of shock in his heart. He had a feeling that the man in the bamboo hat in front of him was his father. Although the moves were completely different from his father's white fang blade, the familiarity could not be faked. If the man in the bamboo hat could hear the voice in Kakashi's heart, he would be surprised, because he had hidden it perfectly enough, but he was still recognized. That's right, the man in the bamboo hat was none other than Hitaki Kakashi's father, Hitaki Sakumo, the man known as the White Fang of Konoha. White Fang just glanced at the kunai in his hand, and the next second he appeared in front of the sand ninja who kidnapped the passerby, and killed him with a knife in the face of his horror. White Fang picked up the passerby, put him next to Kakashi, and said in a hoarse voice, partners are important, don't ignore the lives of your partners for the sake of the mission. Hearing this, Kakashi was even more certain that the man in the bamboo hat in front of him was his father. While White Fang was rescuing people, Ebizo had already led his men to escape. He had already seen that his team of sand ninjas was no match for White Fang. If they all died in a fight, then the sand ninjas would most likely be devastated. So he had to ensure his own safety, and it was better to leave first. As for this vengeance, he remembered it and would take revenge sooner or later. After putting the passerby down, White Fang turned and walked towards the village in the distance. It took less than 30 seconds for White Fang to finish the attack. Even when White Fang disappeared into the forest, Kisaburo was still in a daze. Who is he? Why did he save us? What does he have to do with Konoha? These three questions kept echoing in his mind. Kakashi gritted his teeth, quickly formed seals with his hands, and created a shadow clone to chase after him. He wanted to confirm his guess and wanted to know if that person was his father. Although we don't know who that person is, our first priority is to report this mission to the Hokage and ask him to thoroughly investigate the spies hidden in Konoha. And the passerby's condition is not good, and he must see a doctor as soon as possible, otherwise his life will be in danger. Kizaburo hugged the passerby and called Kakashi to hurry back to Konoha. Thinking of what Baya said before he left, Kakashi nodded, and followed Kizaburo to rush towards Konoha. In the forest near the village, Baya suddenly stopped, turned around and looked at a big tree not far behind him, and said in a deep voice, "Come out. You have followed me all the way." At the same time, Baya's heart tightened. He didn't expect Kakashi to choose to follow him. This was not in line with his expectations. Kakashi walked out from behind the big tree with a complicated expression, staring at the face under the bamboo hat, hesitated for a moment, and asked, "Are you my father?" Baya's heart ached, but he still pretended to be cold and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't even know you." After saying that, in order to make Kakashi believe, White Fang took off his hat and revealed his changed appearance. It was an extremely ordinary, featureless face, with a scar on the right side of his cheek that was as hideous as a centipede. It looked very scary. But Kakashi didn't believe it at all, and said excitedly, "You can't fool me, even if your appearance, fighting style, and even your smell have changed, but your subconscious habits and familiarity when fighting can't be changed. I still can't forget that feeling. You must be the father." Looking at Kakashi, who was sure of himself, White Fang sighed, stretched out his hand and slowly took off his disguise, revealing a face that was familiar to Kakashi, handsome and handsome. "It's really you, Dad. It's me." Kakashi heard the familiar voice in disbelief, and rushed to Baya in a flash. He stretched out his hands to hug the tall body, and tears flowed unconsciously, and he began to cry loudly. Baya was very distressed and held Kakashi tightly in his arms. He was not a talkative person, and he didn't know what to say at the moment. He could only make Kakashi feel at ease in this way. After a long time, Kakashi's emotions stabilized, and he let go of Baya, wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and asked, "Dad, I remember you committed suicide. Why are you here?" White Fang pulled Kakashi to sit on a stone next to him, and slowly said, "At the beginning, because my achievements and performance in the Second Ninja World War had surpassed the third generation, he was afraid that I would threaten his position, so there was the subsequent mission. Later, with the help of Minato Namikaze, Kushina and Yusuke Akamichi, I entered a state of suspended animation." White Fang told Kakashi everything about himself without hiding anything. Yusuke was actually involved. Hearing this, Kakashi was filled with gratitude towards Yusuke, but at the same time he also felt more confused, and said excitedly, "Then why didn't you tell me about your affairs, but let me silently bear the pain of losing my loved ones?" White Fang stretched out his hand to stop Kakashi and explained, "This is what I asked Minato and the others not to tell, because you are my son. If you knew that I am not dead, Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others would definitely find out the flaw, and then not only me, but also Minato and the other three who helped me would be implicated. Also, I want to train you. I believe that even without my guidance, my son will become an indomitable ninja." Kakashi still didn't quite understand, but it was a good thing that his father was not dead, so the knot in his heart was let go, and he felt a lot more relaxed. His originally cold expression also showed a smile again. Half a day later, Kakashi, who was following behind Kizaburo, was stunned, then a smile appeared on his face, and he whispered softly, "Dad, I will not forget your teachings." After that, a confident light flashed in his eyes, and the originally cold breath of the whole person also changed, and he accelerated to catch up with Kizaburo in front. After returning to Konoha, Kakashi took passers-by to the hospital, while Kizaburo went to the Hokage's office to report the situation. Yusuke had no idea how dangerous this mission was. At this time, he was still practicing the sage mode under the guidance of Fukasaku Sage. It should be said that he was worthy of being one of the two great sages of Myoboku Mountain. He lived long enough, and his understanding of the sage mode was not comparable to that of Yusuke, a half-baked one. Under his teaching, Yusuke's breathing method and sage mode have been almost perfected. Not only that, the original pure earth attribute sage mode has also become 7 parts earth and 3 parts fire attribute. The high temperature of this 3-point fire attribute chakra allows Yusuke's earth attribute to be ever-changing, and can even transform the earth attribute chakra into various minerals and metals. The resulting attack is far beyond Yusuke's previous magic. However, Yusuke's real focus is still on meditation. With Fukasaku's guidance, Yusuke has also found the direction of meditation. At this moment, he is sitting cross-legged on the top of the stone cone, his mind completely immersed in his body, searching for his true thoughts in the darkness. Sitting firmly on the wooden board at the tip of the stone cone, Yusuke must focus all his mind on calmness, concentrate highly, and begin to look for the truest thoughts in his heart in disguise. Good boy, you can hold on to the stone forest for such a long time so quickly. Fukasaku next to him was enjoying the insect feast while looking at Yusuke in shock. This was already the 7th day. Yusuke had been sitting cross-legged on the wooden board on the stone cone for 7 days. During this period, he did not move, did not drink a drop of water, and his breathing became more and more stable and regular. He lost nearly 20 kilograms compared to 7 days ago. His originally strong body became thin. And with breathing, the rich chakra in the stone forest entered Yusuke's body, and the chakra in his body was transformed into fairy chakra to maintain life characteristics. Because of hunger and lack of water, the body began to instinctively digest the fat and protein in the body, and even absorb the fairy chakra in the seal of the sea of chi to feed back to its own body. This kind of evolution caused by the inability of the body to survive is not what makes Yusuke happy. What really makes Yusuke happy is that he has gradually torn apart the darkness in his heart, bloomed with light, and realized his own nature. As expected, the less a person has, the more they want to get something. In my previous life, I felt constrained to a certain extent by the education and rules of modern society, so the most real thought in my heart is to be free and unfettered. The light in his heart became brighter and brighter, and Yusuke was able to understand his own thoughts more and more. When the light illuminated his entire soul, he slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were so bright, flashing with a strange brilliance, without the slightest impurity. This is a manifestation of mental strength reaching a certain level. Although Yusuke has not yet reached the point of enlightenment at this time, he has also reached the point of all desires are painful, and without desires, one is strong. With the mentality of being strong without desires, Yusuke can fully exert his strength 100%. Standing up and standing on the wooden board, Yusuke began to move around casually, but no matter how big his movements were or how much the board swayed, he did not fall from the top of the stone cone that was like a needle tip. This showed Yusuke's terrifying control. Fukasaku walked to Yusuke's side and smiled, "Now you have reached the perfect sage mode, and I have nothing to teach you anymore. What you have to do next is to normalize the sage mode, so that you will slowly transform into a sage under the nourishment of natural energy." Yusuke jumped down from the stone cone, came in front of the sage Fukasaku, bowed slightly and said, "Thank you very much, Sage Fukasaku, without you, I would not be able to complete my Kunri Senjutsu." Fukasaku, who has practiced the sage mode for many years, is definitely a good teacher. Even though the senjutsu he practices can only be practiced by toads, he can always give Yusuke valuable suggestions at critical moments, allowing Yusuke to avoid many detours when perfecting the sage mode. Fukasaku accepted the salute with peace of mind, then said with a smile, "Let's go. Shima has prepared a feast to celebrate your completion of the sage mode practice." Quote, Shangsuke paused, and his scalp went numb when he thought of the feast of various live insects. It's not that he can't accept eating insects. As a foodie, he had eaten fried centipedes, fried locusts, scorpions and other foods in his previous life. What he really can't accept is eating live insects. Almost all the toads in Myoboku Mountain think that live insects are the freshest and most delicious. Tsushima usually cooks by washing various insects, then putting vegetables in the bowl and stirring them casually. Shangsuke followed Fukasaku to the dining place with gritted teeth. He had already made up his mind to treat it as the last meal before saying goodbye, and just eat something simple. Soon he came to the dining table. Looking at the various insects that were constantly shaking in the bowl, Shangsuke felt a little nauseous. Sitting at the dining table, his body began to tremble slightly. Seeing this, Shima picked up dozens of silkworm pupae with chopsticks and put them in Shangsuke's bowl, saying, Shangsuke, eat quickly, you see, you have lost dozens of pounds since coming to Myoboku Mountain, and these are just caught from the forest next to it, they are fresh. Thank you, Master Shima. Yusuke nodded, and took up the chopsticks and stuffed a few of the insects in the bowl into his mouth. The bursting juice made him feel sick, and he forced it into his stomach. Next, Yusuke picked the insects that he could accept, such as bamboo worms, water cockroaches, silkworm pupae, etc. He finally ate all the insects in a mouthful, and immediately said goodbye, using the summoning technique to escape back to Konoha. The next moment, without caring about going home, he cast the Flying Thunder God and came to the box of the Zonghua Pavilion, and notified the waiter to keep serving the dishes. Yusuke also began to swallow them in big mouthfuls. He had been tortured enough by various insects during this period of training, and he had a good meal right after that. Make up for it. As various foods entered his mouth, Yusuke felt unprecedented deliciousness, and his eating speed became faster and faster. During this period of time, Yusuke's training in Myoboku Mountain allowed his 6 internal organs to evolve again. The continuous food entering his stomach was quickly digested. Yusuke's body, which had been thin due to not eating for a long time, began to recover slowly, and soon returned to its original sturdy shape. The waiter on the side was stunned, wondering what happened to this young master during this period of time, and how he recovered at this speed. Is he still a human being? Finally, after finishing the food from the 5 tables, Yusuke leaned back in his chair and took a long breath. I finally feel comfortable. Think about what I ate before. Is that what a human should eat? After eating, Yusuke also walked towards home and lay on his bed to sleep. The next morning, as soon as Yusuke went downstairs, he saw Kakashi leaning against the telephone pole in front of his house, obviously waiting for him. Yusuke, you are finally back. Come with me, I have something to talk to you about. After saying that, Kakashi walked towards his own Uchiha clan's territory. Yusuke did not doubt and followed behind Kakashi. The two soon came to a dojo. Yes, it was a dojo. The Uchiha clan's territory was not big, and 2/3 of it was this dojo. Entering the dojo, Yusuke saw various bamboo swords on the sword rack next to it. It was obviously the place where Kakashi usually practiced. Kakashi walked to the sword rack, picked up a bamboo sword and threw it to Yusuke. Then he also took one, walked to the side of the dojo, held the sword with both hands, posed a standard samurai fighting posture, and said seriously, Yusuke, fight with me, I know you are good at swordsmanship. Okay. Although he didn't know why Kakashi said this, Yusuke still agreed, holding the knife in his right hand and taking an offensive stance. Swoosh. With a sound of breaking through the air, Yusuke and Kakashi both moved at the same time. The two turned into 2 afterimages that kept interlacing, and the bamboo swords began to collide constantly, and the dull sound echoed in the gym. Both of them tacitly did not use chakra, but Yusuke was older and heavier, and after years of training, his strength was simply not comparable to Kakashi. Of course, Yusuke held back his strength when fighting, and the strength he used was not beyond the outline, and Kakashi held the sword with both hands, plus his swordsmanship far beyond Yusuke, he could barely keep up with the rhythm. Half an hour later, Kakashi sat in the middle of the gym, panting, and Yusuke was also sitting aside, asking, tell me. What do you want to talk to me about? I don't believe you just want to learn swordsmanship from me. Kakashi took a long breath, showed a relaxed smile, turned his head and said sincerely, Yusuke. Thank you for saving my father. I, Kakashi, swear here that in the future, as long as it is not a matter of principle, I will unconditionally support you and will be your best friend. You know everything, did Minato-san tell you? But that shouldn't be the case, he was the one who told me not to tell you about your father's fake death, he couldn't tell you. So how did you know? Yusuke looked at Kakashi, who looked relaxed and had a different aura, and was a little confused. He felt that Kakashi's form had changed during the battle just now, becoming relaxed and gentle. Not only that, he was more confident in the sword in his hand, and his swordsmanship was much stronger than before. He believed that Kakashi must have experienced something, so he had such a change, and his eyes had begun to turn into the dead fish eyes in the original book. Kakashi tilted his head back, looked at the ceiling of the gym, and said softly, Yusuke. Do you know, I met my father during this mission, talked a lot with him, and also learned about the efforts that you, Yusuke, and Lord Minato made for him. Thank you so much. So that's it, he met White Fang outside the village. No wonder Kakashi has such a huge change. Now it seems that only White Fang can make Kakashi get out of his paranoia and relax his tense spirit. Yusuke lay flat in the middle of the dojo and said with a smile, since you already know everything, then live a good life in the future and work hard to improve your strength. Don't go against Sarutobi Hiruzen before you are absolutely sure. I understand. Hearing Yusuke talking about Sarutobi Hiruzen, Kakashi's relaxed expression became solemn. During the conversation with White Fang, he also learned about what Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo had done over the years, and his heart was filled with anger. He really didn't expect that the Hokage and the Hokage's advisor were not only cruel and ruthless, but also narrow-minded, and couldn't even tolerate their own people. His father, White Fang, had devoted himself to Sarutobi Hiruzen over the years, and had done countless things for him conscientiously, but Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo turned around and wanted to force his father to death. If it weren't for Yusuke and others, his father would probably have died long ago, but even so, he is now living in the ninja world under an assumed name. This also made Kakashi's impression of Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Hokage, decline rapidly, and he hated him to the extreme. You understand. I'm going to take a hot spring bath in the hot spring, do you want to go? Yusuke has been practicing hard in Myoboku Mountain for several months. Now he just wants to relax for a few days, and taking a hot spring bath in the hot spring is a relaxing activity that Yusuke missed very much in Myoboku Mountain. No, my current strength is not enough, I want to stay here to train. Kakashi's eyes were full of seriousness. After learning about White Fang's affairs, his pursuit of strength became more urgent. Now he just wanted to quickly improve his strength. Okay, then I'll go first. Seeing that Kakashi didn't want to leave, Yusuke didn't stay any longer and walked out of the Hitaki clan's territory and headed towards the hot spring in Konoha. Using the power of money to buy the entire hot spring, Yusuke soaked in the hot spring naked, and let out a comfortable groan. If someone was here, they would definitely think wrongly. Let the spring water flow on the surface of his body. Yusuke closed his eyes and enjoyed it, letting the fairy chakra that had been transformed in his body continue to flow along the meridians, and the pure energy warmed every cell in his body. Compared with chakra, Senjutsu chakra is a qualitative change. It will not only not consume the potential of the body, but also strengthen the potential of the body in the process. But this is not enough. I must work hard on yin-yang escape. Only when the body and soul evolve at the same time can we truly live forever. Feeling the changes in his body, Yusuke is also working hard to normalize the sage mode. It is now the 45th year of Konoha, and there are only 2 years left before the 47th year of the Third World War. In the ninja school, both Kai and others have chosen to graduate early and start to perform tasks. Yusuke, Jonin, the Hokage is looking for you. After taking a bath in the hot spring, Yusuke was stopped by an Anbu Jonin as soon as he walked out of the hot spring, saying that Sarutobi Hiruzen was looking for him. This made Yusuke feel a little confused, and he turned and went to the Hokage's office. At this time, not only Sarutobi Hiruzen was in the office, but also the other 3 members of Konoha F4, Orochimaru, Sarutobi Kizaburo and Yusuke's teacher in the ninja school, Tanaki, were all there. The 7 of them sat in an arc in the office, and their expressions were a little serious. This made Yusuke even more confused. Was this a 3-court trial or what? Seeing Yusuke, Sarutobi Hiruzen showed a loving expression on his face and said with a smile, "Yusuke, you are here." Yusuke nodded and asked in confusion, "I wonder what the Hokage wants to talk to me about." "I have something to talk to you about. It's about your promotion to Jonin. Yusuke, although you haven't completed enough missions, your strength has surpassed that of an elite Jonin, which is enough for you to be promoted to Jonin." Hearing this, Yusuke, who was originally a little worried, was relieved, but he was still a little confused. It's just a promotion to Jonin, does it require so many people? As if seeing Yusuke's doubts, Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and explained, because you don't have enough missions, you need other Jonin to be recommended to be promoted to Jonin. Orochimaru, Sarutobi Kizaburo and Tanaki are all your teachers, and they understand your strength, so the 3 of them are the most suitable. And the 3 consultants and I are here to be witnesses. As soon as Sarutobi Hiruzen finished speaking, Kizaburo stood up, looked at Yusuke and said with a smile, Jonin Sarutobi Kizaburo recommends Yusuke to become a Jonin. Orochimaru smiled coldly and said, I, Orochimaru, recommend Yusuke to become a Jonin. Although Tanumaki was not clear about Yusuke's strength, when he saw that Lord Orochimaru agreed, he quickly stood up and agreed. Sarutobi Hiruzen turned around and smiled, What? What do the three advisors think about Yusuke becoming a Jonin? Although Mito Kato-en and Utane Kaharu were wondering why Sarutobi Hiruzen would go to such lengths to appoint a Jonin, they also understood that Sarutobi Hiruzen must have a purpose for doing this, and they would ask about it later if there was anything. So they smiled and said, We too have no objection. Danzo's face looked a little ugly, but his expression was not particularly good-looking, and others could not see it, so he gritted his teeth and said, No. In that case, Akamichi Yusuke will officially become a Jonin. Sarutobi Hiruzen announced the result with a smile, then smiled and said kindly, Yusuke, are you interested in serving in the Anbu? This is only Yusuke. If it was any other ninja in Konoha, Sarutobi Hiruzen would have notified them instead of asking. Yusuke smiled and finally refused. I'm sorry, Hokage, my dream is to become a gourmet in the ninja world, and the Anbu is not suitable for me. Danzo's face became more and more ugly. If he couldn't enter the Anbu, then he couldn't even think about the route he founded. Just like that, within half an hour, Yusuke got his exclusive Jonin vest. After leaving the office, Yusuke looked at Orochimaru beside him and said with a smile, Teacher, it was you who suggested that I be promoted to Jonin. Orochimaru stopped, smiled and said, It was me who suggested it. The freedom of the genin is too low. Only the Jonin has the right to speak in the village, and is relatively freer. Only with freedom can we do what we want to do. Okay. Yusuke immediately understood that Orochimaru was going to do something he didn't know about and asked him to help. Without Orochimaru's reminder, Yusuke followed Orochimaru into the laboratory of the Death Forest. In the laboratory, Yusuke found that there were several more clones of Orochimaru in the huge culture dish. Compared with the previous clones, these new clones had small horns on their foreheads, and they also exuded a trace of fairy chakra in their bodies, which turned into emerald green snake-shaped chakra and wrapped around the clones. Teacher, I didn't expect you to start researching the Sage Mode so soon. After just a moment's thought, Yusuke recognized that this was the Sage Mode that Orochimaru's future child Mitsuki would use. Although it was not perfect yet, it had already taken shape. This surprised him greatly. Orochimaru had actually researched this Sage Mode so many years in advance. He was indeed worthy of being the #1 scientist in the ninja world. Yusuke, come with me. I'll take you to see something good. Hearing this, Yusuke was a little confused, and followed Orochimaru to the deeper part of the laboratory. In the deep corridor, there were khaki stone doors on both sides. The rooms behind each door were all Orochimaru's experimental subjects, most of whom were spies captured by Konoha, death row prisoners, and a small number of orphans from the surrounding areas of the Land of Fire. Yusuke first killed people in a stone chamber here, and his opponents were 3 death row prisoners. And every orphan here had already been brainwashed by Orochimaru, and each of them blindly worshipped Orochimaru and regarded him as their own belief. As long as Orochimaru gave an order, they would not hesitate to let these people commit suicide. The two soon came to the deepest part of the underground corridor, and Yusuke saw a khaki stone door, which had not been there before. He guessed that it was newly opened up by Orochimaru. Orochimaru gently pushed open the stone door, and what came into view was an empty room. There was only a stone platform in the center of the room, on which was placed a fist-sized meteorite. Under the perception of Yusuke's Sage Mode, this fist-sized meteorite was continuously releasing chakra. This chakra was very special, with the yin and yang and 5 spirits gathered together, exuding a crazy and disordered breath. The chakra spread to Yusuke's body, and was instinctively absorbed into his body by Yusuke, and then quickly suppressed by the Senjutsu chakra, but Yusuke still felt a little abnormal. That is, after the Senjutsu chakra absorbed these chakras, there was a tendency to activate faintly. At the same time, this chakra actually eroded his body like radiation. Could it be? After just a moment's thought, Yusuke figured out the origin of the meteorite in the middle of the room. The Star Ninja Village in Bear Country, a ninja village that developed because of a meteorite that fell from the sky 200 years ago, still has a certain status among the small ninja countries. The secret technique, peacock magic, is also quite famous. Peacock magic is a ninjutsu created by the first generation of Hoshikage relying on the special power contained in the meteorite. With this secret technique, chakra can be transformed into various shapes to attack, and even fly. But at the same time, the ninjas of the Star Ninja Village will also be affected by the strong radiation of the meteorite, causing their bodies to continue to weaken and their lifespans to be greatly reduced. He only mentioned it to Orochimaru at the beginning, but he didn't expect Orochimaru to get the star so quickly. As for the origin of the star, Yusuke guessed that it was because Princess Otsutsuki Kagaya was sealed on the moon, and the diffused chakra inadvertently changed the material structure of this meteorite, allowing it to have the characteristics of the 10 tails, but the effect was not as good as the 10 tails chakra. Of course, it may also be the 10 tails fragment speculated by the sand sculpture netizens in the previous life, but no matter which one it is very useful for the research of Yusuke and Orochimaru. Orochimaru nodded, a little excited. Yes, this is the star of the Star Ninja Village that Yusuke said. During the time when you went to Myoboku Mountain to practice, I went to the Bear Country and snatched it from there. After research, I found that the chakra it emits is very close to the chakra of the tailed beasts. No, it should be said that it surpasses the chakra of the tailed beasts. Even the chakra of the 9-tailed beast is not as good as it. It is precisely because of the chakra emitted by this star that I can make the clones change to the sage mode. I found that the nature of its chakra is the same as natural energy. This discovery is really shocking. I can't imagine how many secrets there are in the ninja world that I haven't discovered. The more Orochimaru spoke, the more excited he became. He looked at the star on the stone platform with a somewhat obsessed look, and he had already thought about the time when he would master all the secrets of chakra in the future. Seeing this, Yusuke was a little speechless. Where was the aloof Orochimaru before? He shook his head and ignored the delusional Orochimaru. He walked to the front of the star and began to study the state of the star. The material composed of the meteorite is indeed minerals, not the unique wooden structure of the 10 tails. So just as Yusuke guessed at the beginning, this meteorite should have been infected by Kagaya's chakra and changed its material structure. This is Kagaya's chakra. The 7 chakra attributes of wind, thunder, water, fire, earth, yin and yang are gathered together, which is definitely the best reference object. Putting his hand on the star, Yusuke exhaled lightly and took the initiative to start absorbing the chakra that the star emits continuously. As for the physical harm caused by the star chakra radiation, it is not a problem for Yusuke at all. Now Yusuke's body is no longer comparable to the physique of a ninja. The radiation from the star can't cause any harm to Yusuke's body at all. Instead, it is a very good nutrient that can improve his physical fitness. After absorbing for a while, the star that originally released a lot of chakra became much dimmer, and the chakra it emitted was much less, only a little bit, and there was no comparison with before. Sensing this, Yusuke was also shocked, and quickly took his hand off the star and stopped absorbing chakra. He looked at Orochimaru with a somewhat embarrassed expression and said, I thought the chakra of this thing was endless. He really didn't expect that the star couldn't hold on in just 2 minutes. You know, in the original book, this thing was used by a ninja in the Star Ninja Village to practice for many years without weakening at all. He still thought that there was a lot of chakra contained in the star. Orochimaru's face was also a little ugly, and he forced a smile. It's okay. According to my research, this thing can absorb natural energy to recover. As long as you don't destroy it, it will recover after a while. That's good. Yusuke breathed a sigh of relief. If Shing was destroyed, Orochimaru would have to fight him to the death. Fortunately, it was not completely destroyed. Orochimaru came up to Yusuke, holding a ninjutsu scroll in his hand, and said with a smile, by the way, Yusuke, this time when I went to the Shing Ninja Village, I also obtained the ninjutsu, peacock magic, created by their first generation Shingying. Do you want to take it to the training room next to study it? Although his expression was smiling, his eyes were full of disgust. Not only that, Orochimaru's body exuded a cold breath. This made Yusuke sweat all over his body. He quickly took the scroll from Orochimaru's hand, and flashed to the training room next to him. The door was closed with a bang. Seeing this, Orochimaru showed a satisfied smile, carefully walked to the front of Shing, and continued his obsessive research. In the training room, Yusuke wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and breathed a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, if I ran away, otherwise I would become the experimental material in the petri dish. After looking at the door several times and making sure that Orochimaru hadn't come in, Yusuke spread out the scroll in his hand and learned the peacock magic inside. The so-called peacock magic is to activate the chakra to the limit and transform the tail of a peacock behind the caster, and then transform into various different chakra forms for fighting. The so-called chakra activation, Yusuke found that it was actually an application of Yang Dan, and letting the chakra transform into different forms for fighting was the use of Yin Dan. I didn't expect that the first generation of Hoshikage didn't know yin-yang escape, but relied on the chakra of this star to create a method of using yin-yang escape. He is also a genius. After studying it for a while, Yusuke found that the essence of the peacock magic method is actually yin-yang escape. After reading it for a while, he threw the scroll aside. This magic method didn't have much effect on him, but it just gave him more means of attack. He was still more interested in the chakra of the star in his body. He closed his eyes and meditated, his mind sank into his body, and began to feel the changes in his own chakra. Compared with the previous chakra, the current chakra is more active and can change into any shape under the control of mental power. As this Kagaya's chakra, the yin and yang chakras seem to be one, embracing and transforming each other, but they are relatively independent. Is this the reason why chakra can be integrated to produce new properties? Yusuke mainly felt the yin and yang properties of Kagaya's chakra, and soon discovered the mystery of the remaining star chakra. It was a pity that the remaining chakra was too little, and before he could study it thoroughly, it was absorbed by the body. No wonder Orochimaru did not choose to absorb Xing's chakra, but used his own knowledge to study. It turns out that Xing's chakra is too little. There is nothing to study anymore, and Yusuke hurriedly got up and carefully pushed the door of the training room open a crack. When he found that Orochimaru was not there, he boldly walked out of the laboratory. Returning to Konoha, Yusuke strolled around Konoha after a long time. Looking at the villagers with smiles on their faces on the streets, he felt that this peace would not last long. The current scorpion of the Red Sand has long been possessed by demons and has begun to plan how to kill the third Kazekage to avenge his parents. It will not be long before the third Kazekage, the strongest Kazekage, will be poisoned to death, and then the Sand Ninja will launch the Third Ninja World War for resources and to show its strength. After buying a bunch of snacks from the surrounding stalls, Yusuke ate while strolling around. He looked very leisurely and relaxed. The next day, early in the morning, Yusuke received a new appointment letter. He has left Team 10. It should be said that except for Kizaburo and Lu Ren who are still in Team 10, Kakashi was also asked to go over by Minato Namikaze, and became teammates with the newly graduated Uchiha Obito and Rin. Now he is a Jonin, and he will start to lead a class next year. Except for non-essential tasks, the rest of the time is very free, just like the Jonins of the Hyuga and Akamichi clans. He is not short of money, so naturally he does not need to perform a large number of tasks in exchange for money like other ninjas. So his goal is to do what he likes every day like Jiraiya, Orochimaru, Tsunade and other ninjas. Yusuke-kun, I didn't expect you to be hanging out here too. A crisp voice came from behind, and Yusuke saw an unexpected person, Uchiha Makoto. At this moment, she was holding a man's arm and looking at him with a smile on her face. The man was none other than the new head of the Uchiha Clan, Uchiha Fugaku. The reason for the surprise was that Uchiha Makoto had married the head of the clan, Uchiha Fugaku, and had not left the Uchiha Clan for a long time. The current Uchiha is far from the state it was in after the Third World War. The current Uchiha is the largest clan in Konoha, and the villagers are not too exclusive with the Uchiha. After all, the Uchiha clan made a great contribution in the Second World War and successfully resisted the ninja army of the Land of Water. Seeing the newcomer, Yusuke said with a teasing look on his face, "Sister Makoto. Long time no see, you finally decided to leave the Uchiha clan." Uchiha Makoto blushed and leaned on Uchiha Fugaku's shoulder with a happy face. Then she stroked her belly with her hand and said with a smile, "I'm pregnant, and I begged Brother Fugaku to come out for a walk before my belly gets bigger. I didn't expect that the Uchiha filial son would be born so soon." Looking at Uchiha Makoto's belly, Yusuke looked a little strange, but still waved his hand and smiled. Then congratulations to Sister Makoto, you will definitely give birth to a big fat son in the future. Makoto smiled and said gently, then I'll take your kind words. Uchiha Fugaku, who was standing by, put his arm around Makoto's slender waist and said with a smile, Akamichi Yusuke, I've heard of you, the current Konoha's #1 genius. I wonder if you could come with me to a tea house far away to have a cup of tea and chat. Of course. Seeing Yusuke agreed, Uchiha Fugaku also smiled. As the head of the Uchiha clan, he must be very familiar with the situation of Uchiha and Konoha. After Yusuke showed his talent, he has been paying attention to him, especially some time ago. He was personally recommended by Orochimaru as a Jonin. He knew that Yusuke was definitely not as simple as he seemed. In addition, Makoto was Kushina's best friend and often mentioned Yusuke's genius, so he always wanted to meet Yusuke to see what kind of person this Konoha's first genius was. The three of them quickly walked into the tea house, ordered a pot of green tea and a lot of cakes, and started chatting. The more they talked, the more surprised Uchiha Fugaku was, because no matter what they talked about, Shangji could say something, especially when it came to food, training, and the future situation of the ninja world. He could hit the nail on the head and had a unique analysis. The more so, the more he felt that Shangji in front of him was not simple, and he wanted to make friends with him, so he smiled and said, then Shangji, what do you think of Uchiha? Shangji was stunned, and he didn't expect Uchiha Fugaku to ask him about the Uchiha clan, but he also reacted quickly and smiled and said, the Uchiha clan is great. As the largest clan in Konoha, and in control of the Konoha Guard, what's wrong with that? After that, he looked at Uchiha Fugaku sincerely, with the purpose of making him believe. But Uchiha Fugaku saw Yusuke's surprise just now clearly, and said seriously, Yusuke, do you really think so? He didn't know it before he took over as the clan leader. After taking over as the clan leader, he realized how bad the situation of the Uchiha clan was. The hawkish faction headed by the great elder Uchiha Satsuna was very dissatisfied with the top leaders of Konoha. They believed that they had inherited the will of Uchiha Madara and had been planning to seize the position of Hokage. The Uchiha clan members who opposed Uchiha Satsuna naturally united together, hoping to allow the Uchiha to live a stable life in Konoha. There are also some Uchiha clan members who have nothing to do with it, hanging high and watching the two factions fighting constantly. As the clan leader, he was caught between the three factions and felt very uncomfortable. What made him most tired was the current situation of the Uchiha in Konoha. It was said that they were a big clan in Konoha, but other ninja clans and civilians in Konoha implicitly excluded them. It was said that they were not a big clan in Konoha, but the Uchiha clan was one of the two clans that founded Konoha. These situations made him feel suffocated. This time, Makoto was pregnant and wanted to go out for a walk, so he came out with her, just to relax. Seeing Uchiha Fugaku's expression, Yusuke knew that he had to say something, and said, if the Uchiha continues like this, it will be very dangerous. The Uchiha clan is now suppressed by the upper echelons and has begun to slowly leave the core of Konoha. If the upper echelons are broad-minded, it's okay, and the Uchiha can still live a stable life. But if the upper echelons personally suppress the Uchiha clan, the powerless Uchiha will only be stretched to the limit and be led by the nose, and it is very likely to go the way of the Senju clan. Moreover, the Uchiha clan itself is not united, and there are even ideas of seizing high positions from the upper echelons, which will only make the upper echelons more vigilant. In addition, the Uchiha clan is generally arrogant, which also leads to the fact that the people of the security department like to use force when arresting people, and don't like to explain, which makes the villagers of Konoha generally dislike it. At this point, Uchiha Fugaku's face was very gloomy, and it can be imagined that he was extremely uneasy at this time. Even the gentle Uchiha Makoto's face turned cold. She had also thought about the future of Uchiha. Clan leader Fugaku, if this continues, will the Uchiha clan become the enemy of Konoha? After the words fell, Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Makoto fell silent. The reality was indeed as Yusuke said. In the original work, the Uchiha clan went to destruction. Although Konoha F4 accounted for a large part of the reason, the Uchiha clan also had huge problems, which made them step by step go to the opposite side of Konoha. Uchiha Makoto, who had regained consciousness, couldn't wait to ask, Yusuke, you are so smart, you must have a way to solve the Uchiha clan's problems. Can you give the Uchiha clan some advice? Quote, Yusuke shook his head and said in a deep voice, Sister Makoto, the Uchiha clan's affairs can only be solved by you Uchiha clan members. I have no way, but I have read such a sentence in a book. To resist foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the internal situation. To fight against foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the country. To fight against foreign aggression, we must first stabilize the country. Hearing this, Uchiha Fugaku kept murmuring these 6 words, and his eyes became more and more determined, as if he had made up his mind. With a determined look in his eyes, Uchiha Fugaku stood up, bowed to Yusuke, and said gratefully, Thank you sir for your advice, Uchiha Fugaku is very grateful. After that, he pulled Uchiha Makoto beside him out of the tea house and quickly rushed to the Uchiha clan's territory. After Yusuke's reminder, he also understood that in order to solve the problems of the Uchiha clan, they must be like the Hyuga clan. There must be only one voice in the clan, instead of discussing with the elders every time a problem arises and listening to their opinions. After Uchiha Fugaku left, Yusuke leisurely drank his tea and ate the cakes before leaving. After becoming a Jonin, Yusuke enjoyed the relaxed daily life very much. In addition to the necessary practice and recipe research, he spent the rest of his time traveling in the Land of Fire to find new ingredients. Anyway, with Shadow Clone and Flying Thunder God, he could return to Konoha at any time. 9 months later, Yusuke was invited to Uchiha to attend the banquet for the birth of Uchiha Itachi. Also invited were Minato Namikaze, Kushina, Hiruzen Sarutobi and others. Yusuke sat in the corner quietly and ate a lot. The banquet ended soon. Hiruzen Sarutobi left directly, while he, Minato Namikaze and Kushina were left behind. Uchiha Fugaku came to Yusuke with Itachi in his arms and smiled eagerly. Yusuke, I want my son to be your disciple, is that possible? Yusuke was stunned. It's not impossible to become Itachi's teacher, but what this filial son will do in the future makes him extremely unhappy, and he doesn't have a good impression of him, so he is also a little entangled in his heart. Fugaku saw that Yusuke's expression changed slightly, and he forced a smile on his face and said, Since Yusuke-kun doesn't want to, then forget it. It's not that I don't want to. Yusuke waved his hand and said with a smile, I can accept being Itachi's teacher, but what I have learned is not in line with your Uchiha clan, and I may not be able to fully exert his strength. Fugaku smiled and said, Don't worry about this, I will teach him about the Sharingan, you just need to teach him what you want to teach. Looking at Fugaku, Yusuke also complained in his heart, It's really cunning, letting me choose what to teach. But it's good this way, I can train Uchiha Itachi and let him feel the thoughts of the good young people in the new era. Thinking of this, Yusuke nodded. Seeing that he agreed, Fugaku was also very pleased, and smiled, Thank you very much, Yusuke. It's just a small favor, don't be polite. That's good. After that, Yusuke teased Uchiha Itachi for a while, smiled and left. Becoming Itachi's teacher did not affect Yusuke's life. On the contrary, because of this reason, he learned a lot of yin-tun training methods from the Uchiha clan and improved his own yin-yang tun. Even if Yusuke does not activate the Sage mode now, his strength has firmly reached the level of Kage. With the help of the Sage mode and the Flying Thunder God technique, he is basically invincible at the Kage level, and no one can threaten his life. Time passed by. In a cave near the Sand Village, the red-haired scorpion of the Red Sand led the third Kazekage to a deeper place with an expressionless face. The third Kazekage looked at Scorpion with guilt in his eyes and asked softly, Scorpion, what surprise do you have that requires me to come and see it in person? Just follow me. Scorpion still had no expression on his face as he walked towards the deepest part of the cave. The third Kazekage sighed in his heart when he saw Scorpion like this. In the end, he was still sorry for Scorpion. It was because of his order that Scorpion's parents died at the hands of White Fang, leaving only Scorpion, who was less than 6 years old. From then on, Scorpion became what he is now, cold and ruthless, and only knew how to study puppets. Soon the third Kazekage followed Scorpion to the deepest room in the cave. As soon as he entered the door, he saw the 2 lifelike puppets on the bed in the distance, but what really surprised him was the identity of the 2 puppets. Scorpio, you actually made your parents. Puff. The third Kazekage turned around and scolded Scorpion in shock, but before he could finish his words, he felt a pain in his chest. He looked down and found that a long scorpion tail had pierced his chest. The tip of the sharp stinger had purple venom mixed with blood that kept dripping onto the ground. Wow! Scorpion looked at the third Kazekage expressionlessly, stretched out his hands, and used the chakra line to control the parent's puppet to retract the scorpion's tail. The third Kazekage only felt a heart-wrenching pain, and then a mouthful of blood spurted out. Scorpio, you! The third Kazekage looked at Scorpion in disbelief, but the poison in his body had spread all over his body. He felt that his body was no longer his own. He couldn't even speak. He fell straight to the ground and his body began to twitch uncontrollably. Scorpion slowly came to the front of the third Kazekage, squatted down and said coldly, "You don't have to struggle. The poison you planted is the latest research of the old woman. It is a mixed poison, which is a mixture of neurotoxins, blood poisons and chakra poisons. As long as you get a little bit of it, even a cage-level strongman will die quickly." The third Kazekage's eyes were full of reluctance, and he asked in confusion, Why? Seeing this, Scorpion's voice was still calm. "It's all because of you that my parents died, so I want to kill you, but it's a pity that White Fang is dead, otherwise my next target would be him. But don't worry, I will make you into an eternal puppet, and stay with me forever." After speaking, Scorpion stood up, took off his clothes, and revealed the body that had been transformed. Except for the blood and flesh on the chest, the rest of the organs on the body were all replaced with puppet materials. The third Kazekage couldn't believe that a person could be so cruel as to transform himself into a puppet. However, he was completely unable to move at this time, and his consciousness gradually blurred. Finally, his eyes went black, and he completely passed away. Scorpion walked to the third Kazekage's body, took out various puppet transformation tools, and began to transform the third Kazekage drastically. For a while, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and blood kept flowing. Soon after, the news of the disappearance of the third Kazekage spread throughout the ninja world. The Sand Village, which had lost its leader, fell into chaos and searched everywhere for the whereabouts of the third Kazekage, triggering a series of incidents. Especially in the Land of Fire, a large number of ninjas from the Sand Village entered the country and attacked many important places in the Land of Fire. The actions of the Wind Country were like a spark that ignited the entire ninja world. The other three major ninja villages also began to take action and began to invade the Land of Fire. The war spread throughout the world in a short time. Today, the people of Konoha are in a panic. This war is different from the Second World War. With the Rain Country as a buffer, the main battles also took place in the Rain Country, and the intensity of other battlefields was not great. This time, the four major ninja villages attacked from different directions. Konoha reacted quickly and began to deal with the attacks of the four major countries. In the meeting room of Konoha, all the major families and all the senior ninjas have arrived. They all sat there seriously, and their faces were all very ugly. Most of the people here have experienced war, so they naturally understand the cruelty of war and know very well what they are facing. Sand Ninja, isn't it just that the third Kazekage is missing? As for putting the blame on us, Konoha. Now it's all right. The ninja war has broken out. How many people will die? The same goes for the other three countries. Why don't they invade other countries but choose our Konoha? This time, I will definitely choose the Wind Country battlefield. I will teach those sand ninjas a lesson. That's right, they must remember this lesson well. The indignant voices of the Jonin could be heard in the meeting room. Most of them were very angry at the sand ninja and wanted to fight in the Wind Country battlefield area immediately. Of course, there was also a reason because the sand ninja was the weakest of the four countries and was relatively safe. Soon, Sarutobi Hiruzen, accompanied by 3 Hokage advisors, and the Sannin walked in with serious faces and sat in the first 7 seats. Even Tsunade, who suffers from hemophobia, has been found. It seems that Konoha is really short of people now. But think about it, it is right. Not long after the Second World War ended, the Third World War started. Population. After sitting down, Sarutobi Hiruzen went straight to the point and said, I won't say too much nonsense about the current situation. Because the third Kazekage disappeared, the Sand Ninja began to attack our Fire Country. The other three major countries will naturally not miss this opportunity, so the Third Ninja World War has begun. Sandaime-sama, give the order. I can't wait to teach those sand ninjas a lesson. That's right, we must make those sand ninja guys pay the price. Quiet. Sarutobi Hiruzen raised his hand and the entire conference room fell silent. I know everyone hates the invasion of the Sand Ninja, but we have to deal with not only the Sand Ninja, but also other ninja villages. I have already discussed with all the consultants. Orochimaru will lead the team to deal with the battlefield of the Wind Country. Tsunade will lead the medical ninjas to deal with Chiyo's poison as the logistics chief. Jiraiya will lead the battle in the Lightning Country, the Uchiha Clan will lead the Water Country, and Danzo will lead the Earth Country. In the Sand Ninja base, in a tent with a huge wind written on it, Luo Sha and several elders were looking at the intelligence that had just been delivered to them, with a look of joy on their faces. Without the supply line, these Konoha ninjas won't be able to hold out for long no matter how strong their ability to survive in the wild is. Our chance is coming. But this time, the commander of Konoha in the Land of Wind is Orochimaru. Would that guy who can always keep calm make such a low-level mistake? You know, the importance of supply lines in war is very high. Compared to Luo Sha's excitement, Chiyo, who is experienced in war and knows Orochimaru, is worried. She always feels something strange in her heart and thinks there must be a trick. Hearing this, Luo Sha said confidently, but Konoha's logistics is not in charge of Orochimaru, but Tsunade, a guy who likes to drink, play cards, and has a carefree personality. It is normal for such a person to be negligent. And even if this is a trap, Konoha must prepare enough bait, so these supply lines are 80% real. So I will personally handle the attack and rob Konoha's supplies this time. In this way, no matter how well Konoha is prepared, no matter how strong the ambushing ninja is, we can deal with it. Hearing Luo Sha's words, Chiyo breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Luo Sha had also considered the problem of this trap. Although Konoha is powerful, it is also facing the attack of the four countries, and its combat power is scattered. The top combat power on the battlefield of the Wind Country is not as much as their Sand Ninja. But now Luo Sha is the prepared fourth-generation Kazekage, and he can't take risks easily. So Chiyo said softly, Luo Sha, you are the prepared fourth-generation Kazekage, the hope of the future Sand Ninja, and you can't take risks. And Fenfuku is the Jinchuriki, which is an unstable factor in itself, so let me, the old woman, take care of this operation. Luo Sha thought about it and felt that it was not appropriate. He, the fourth-generation Kazekage, was elected by the elders, and he did not make much contribution to the Sand Ninja. He did not have much reputation in the Sand Ninja, so he urgently needed a record to stabilize his position. Grandma Chiyo, it's better for me to do this mission myself. You are experienced in combat, it's better to have you in charge. After hearing the hidden meaning in Luosha's words, Chiyo also reacted. Luosha didn't seem to have many achievements. His reputation in the Sand Ninja was accumulated by using the magnetic ninja gold panning. It didn't have much impact on his strength. He was only known as a powerful elite ninja. That's fine, but you have to be careful and don't forget who you are. Yeah, Luo Sha nodded. In a valley beside the supply route of the Land of Fire, Yusuke was ambushing with his Jonin team, waiting for the arrival of the Sand Ninja. Inuzuka Tsumugi, the only female in the team, approached Hazashi who was using the Byakugan to scout and asked, Hazashi-kun, how is it? Have you seen the Sand Ninja? We have been waiting here for 3 days, and we haven't even seen the shadow of a Sand Ninja. Will Lord Orochimaru's plan work? He was not questioning Orochimaru's plan, but was dissatisfied with Orochimaru's approach. The sacrificed team had no idea about Orochimaru's plan, and was just a sacrifice for the victory of the war. No, I didn't see any trace of the Sand Ninja. Hazashi shook his head, closed his Byakugan, turned to look at the other side of Aburame Shiwei, and asked, Shiwei, where are the bugs over there? The Byakugan can see things within a radius of 1 kilometer. With training, this distance can be increased, and the distance that Hyuga Hazashi can observe is no more than 3 kilometers. Aburame Shiwei, who has a weak sense of existence, shook his head, my bugs didn't give me any feedback. Seeing that the 2 reconnaissance members in the team had no news, Inuzuka Sume's face sank, and he said somewhat unsightly, "It seems that the sand ninja didn't fall for it." If the sand ninja didn't fall for it, their previous efforts would be completely wasted, and the dead team and supplies would also die in vain. At this time, Yusuke, who was lying on the side, suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a little rock texture on his forehead. He stood up and reminded in a cold voice, "Here they come. Follow me." Hyuga Hazashi and the other two looked at each other with doubts in their eyes, but they still followed Yusuke's footsteps. Although Yusuke was relatively young, they thought he could not take on the responsibility of captain, but he was indeed the captain appointed by Orochimaru, so they had to listen. The three followed Yusuke for a full 5 kilometers before stopping. Hyuga Hazashi hid beside Yusuke. Based on the instinct of the reconnaissance team, he subconsciously opened his Byakugan and looked into the distance, and was immediately startled. The sand ninja are actually here. Upon hearing this, Inuzuka Sume and Aburame Shiwei were immediately shocked, and they all used their own methods to conduct reconnaissance. Soon they got feedback from the smell and insects, and found that there were indeed more than a dozen sand ninja here. Inuzuka Sume looked at Yusuke with a hint of admiration in his eyes. No wonder Orochimaru let Yusuke be the captain, his perception ability is so strong. This place is 5 kilometers away from where we were just now. Aburame Shiwei also nodded, and her resistance to the young Yusuke becoming his captain was much less. Do the sand ninja still have so many elite fighters? 6 Jonin, 13 Chunin, the leader's chakra fluctuations are even faintly higher than the Jonin, it should be the 4th Kazekage Rasa. How come? The 4 of us are probably no match. The 3 of them are from the reconnaissance team, and their reconnaissance methods are amazing. They quickly figured out the opponent's strength and were immediately a little worried. The sand ninja's hand is a bit big, and they don't know if they can complete the task. Get ready for battle, the perception ninja on the other side has discovered us. Yusuke's perception in Sage mode is amazing. He discovered the moment the sand ninja changed its route. The route the sand ninja changed was exactly where their team was. It seemed that they had discovered them. We have to fight now. The 3 Hyuga Hazashi were ready in an instant, especially the strongest among them, Hyuga Hazashi, who had already set his sights on the strongest sand ninja, Rasa, and directly ignored Yusuke on the side, using the instant body technique to rush towards Rasa. Because Yusuke was not very old, even though Orochimaru said that Yusuke was very strong, and Yusuke had become a Jonin very early, but he still didn't believe that Yusuke could be that strong, so he subconsciously ignored Yusuke. Seeing this, Yusuke smiled indifferently, turned to look at the remaining Inuzuka Suma and Aburame Jiwei, and ordered, "Brother Jiwei, your insect secret technique is very suitable for group attacks, and the sand ninja Chunin will be left to you. And Sister Suma, take Kuromaru with me to deal with the 6 Jonin." The two nodded, looking extremely focused. Secret technique, bug ball. Aburame Shiwei raised her hands and used her signature ninjutsu. She stretched out her hands and countless bugs flew out from her sleeves. The dense swarm of bugs covered the entire sky and attacked the 13 Chunins behind Rasa and the others. "I've been waiting for a long time. This time I will make sure that your team of Jonin will never come back." Having sensed the enemy long ago, Luo Sha would not be frightened by this sudden attack. He knew in his heart that Konoha was now fighting against the 4 countries at the same time, and its combat effectiveness was seriously insufficient. Even 4 Jonin could play a decisive role in the battlefield of the Wind Country. He must have seen Luo Sha stop in an instant, quickly form seals with his hands, and slap them downwards with force. Suddenly, the ground spurted out a sky full of gold sand, like waves of the sea, sweeping forward one after another. Magnetic release. Gold dust. The gold dust wave was 50 meters high. Combined with the terrifying weight and density of the gold dust, if it was filmed, the bodies of Yusuke and the others would definitely turn into meat paste. 8 Diagram Palm. Return to heaven. Hinata Hiyashi's figure instantly arrived in front of the golden sand wave, and terrifying chakra burst out from the acupuncture points all over his body. As his body rotated, it formed a high-speed rotating chakra ball. The magnetic escaping golden sand swept onto the chakra ball, and was blown away by the terrifying centrifugal force formed by the rotation of the chakra ball, unable to move forward at all. Ya Tong Ya. Inuzuka's claws and Kuromaru cooperated, turning into 2 huge tornadoes and crashing towards the gold dust. The sound of hurricanes rubbing against metal continued to sound, and the huge tornado slowly broke through the gold dust's defense, tearing a hole in the gold dust wave. With this hole, the gold dust was like a burst dam, slowly beginning to collapse. Not good. Seeing this, Luo Sha's face changed, and he quickly increased the output of chakra in his body to stabilize the gold sand wave, and at the same time extracted more gold sand from the ground to replenish the consumption of the gold sand wave. As time passed, the rotation speed of the chakra ball and the tornado began to decrease, and the power also decreased too much. Gradually, they were suppressed by the gold sand wave. Under Luo Sha's control, the waves were higher and stronger. He is indeed worthy of being the man who can become the fourth Kazekage. It seems that we will have to die here today. Inside the chakra ball, Hyuga Hiyashi was desperate and tried hard to maintain the rotation of Kaden. He was a little exhausted now. In fact, his strength was not worse than Rasa. As the younger brother of Hyuga Hiyashi, in order to protect the main family, he has been fighting all year round and was in the front line of the war. How could his strength be weak? The main reason for his lack of fame is that all his military exploits were given to his brother Hyuga Hiyashi to maintain his position as the head of the family. The main reason why he can't hold on now is that using chakra to manipulate matter consumes much less than using chakra directly, and Kaden is about continuously spraying chakra from the acupuncture points all over the body, and then forming an absolute defense through rotation. The longer it is maintained, the more chakra is consumed. However, even if I die today, I will let Yusuke live. Already somewhat desperate, Yusuke's young face and the will of fire appeared in his mind, and his eyes gradually became firm. Inuzuka's claws, who were maintaining the tornado, had almost reached their limit at this moment. Yusuke, who was playing with the 6 Jonin, also sensed the status of the two and immediately realized that he could not play anymore. Looks like I have to take action too. Partial multiplication technique. Immediately, a sneer of disdain appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he exerted a little force on his feet. He turned around and stood beside a sand ninja who was using wind style. His right hand had become as huge as a millstone, and he smashed it hard to the side. Facing Yusuke's sudden attack, the sand ninja had no time to react. The next moment, he felt that he was hit by a high-speed dump truck. Blood splattered immediately, and his consciousness went black, and he flew backwards like a cannonball. Bang! Hundreds of huge trees that could be hugged by 2 people were knocked down, and the sand ninja who was knocked away by Yusuke was like mud. There was no good flesh on his body, and he was deader than dead. This sudden movement attracted the attention of everyone present. Several sand ninjas close to Yusuke quickly distanced themselves from him. Even Luasha stopped attacking Hinata Hiyashi and Inuzuka Claw, gathered the sand gold around him, and looked at Yusuke in disbelief. Could he be Yusuke Akamichi? Looking at Yusuke's young face, Luo Sha suddenly remembered the incident that shocked the entire sand village 2 years ago. None of the ninjas sent to the land of fire to rob supplies returned. They were all killed by a Konoha ninja named Yusuke Akamichi. Now looking at this young and tender face again, he can be sure that the boy in front of him is Yusuke Akamichi who they were looking for. It's really a case of searching for something in vain, but it's easy to find it. As long as I kill Yusuke Akamichi, not only will Konoha lose a genius who is a pillar of the society, but it will also bring me a lot of reputation and consolidate my position. Luo Sha was ecstatic. After all, what Yusuke did at the beginning caused an uproar in the Sand Ninja. For the sake of his position, he must choose to kill Yusuke Akamichi. No wonder Orochimaru wanted Yusuke to be the captain and take full charge of this operation. With this terrifying chakra, I dared to give him a hard time. Hinata Hazashi, who was standing next to Inuzuka Suma, looked at Yusuke in disbelief. Under his Byakugan, Yusuke's body was like the sea, and there was no comparison with before. But at the same time, he was full of doubts. Why didn't his Byakugan see such terrifying chakra before? In fact, Hinata Hazashi didn't know that Yusuke had a Chi-Si seal in his body. Usually, Yusuke only mobilized a small amount of chakra. Transformed into yin and yang attributes to nourish the body and soul, most of the chakra is sealed in the sea of Chi. Except for the bug-like skills like Kagura's heart's eye, it is basically impossible to see through. Everything happened in a flash, and Yusuke had no idea what Hyuga Hazashi and others were thinking. He restored his right hand to its original state, his eyes still full of disdain, and said, "Brother Hazashi. Sister Claw, I will leave 2 Jonin for you two to deal with, and leave Rasa to me. After speaking, 3 black lights flashed in the air, and the next moment, 3 sand ninja Jonin fell down with their hands covering their necks, leaving only 2 sand ninja who had no idea what was going on. This sudden incident made Hyuga Hazashi and Inuzuka Claw instantly understand the meaning of Yusuke's previous words, but what really shocked the two was the method Yusuke had just used. Rasa may not be clear, but those who have performed missions with Namikaze Minato know it very well. Flying Thunder God Technique. As for the equally shocked Aburame Shiwei, under the weak presence of the Aburame, even if Yusuke had reminded him many times in his heart to remember him, he subconsciously ignored it at this moment. Fortunately, Aburame Shiwei had long been accustomed to this situation, and was not surprised by it. He was just a little disappointed in his heart, and continued to use the family secrets to fight with those Chunins. The insects of the Aburame clan are fed by their own chakra, and each has its own characteristics. The Aburame Shiwei, the clan leader, uses the most comprehensive parasitic insects among them. Whether it is attack, defense, medical treatment, or assistance, they are very powerful, and their body size is extremely small. If you don't pay attention, you will be attacked. It can be said that it is hard to defend against. The most important thing is that Aburame Shiwei is experienced and very experienced in using insects. These sand ninjas with only Chunin strength are not opponents at all. If they were not outnumbered, I am afraid they would have been defeated by now. 3 sand ninja Jonins died in front of him. Luasha was instantly furious. Looking at Yusuke, he asked loudly, "How dare you? How dare you?" At the same time, he formed seals with both hands, and the gold dust behind him began to change shape continuously, and finally turned into a huge cube floating above his head, and then crashed into Yusuke. These Jonins are the backbone of the sand ninjas. There are not many of them, and he would feel distressed for a long time if one of them was missing. Now there are 4 less in an instant, and the remaining 2 will probably not last long under the hands of Hyuga Hazashi and Inuzuka Suma. In fact, he doesn't care whether these people are dead or not. This is the education of the sand ninjas. What really makes him care is that these Jonins died under his leadership, which will damage the reputation of the 4th Kazekage. This is what he cares about. Yusuke exerted a little force on his feet, and his body flew directly into the air like a rock spreading its wings. The fairy chakra gathered in his right hand, and punched the huge gold dust cube. Under Yusuke's terrifying power, the gold dust cube exploded instantly, turning into golden sand all over the sky and falling to the ground. Flying to the ground, Yusuke sneered disdainfully, "Why don't you dare? Since the war has been launched, you must be prepared to be killed. Then go to hell." Magnetic style. Gold dust burial. The furious Luasha shouted at Yusuke, and at the same time stretched out his right hand to grasp the void in front of him. Suddenly, a large amount of gold dust spurted out from the ground around Yusuke, and turned into a giant hand to pull Yusuke into the ground, and then there was a sound of explosion from the ground. After doing all this, the originally furious Luasha sneered, "No one can escape from the gold dust burial, this guy is finally dead." It turned out that his anger just now was all pretended. As a wind shadow, how could he lose his composure because of such a small matter? The purpose was to cover the gold dust that was buried in the ground and moved forward, and to launch a fatal blow to Yusuke. Hinata Hazashi and Inuzuka Tail, who were fighting on the side, saw Yusuke being dragged into the ground by the gold dust. There was no fluctuation in their eyes, and they continued their battle. Because they knew that people who possessed the Flying Thunder God technique would find it difficult to die unless they committed suicide. Just when Luasha thought he had killed Yusuke's disdainful and slightly sarcastic voice came from not far behind him, "Is this your attack? It's too slow. At this speed, I think even the old lady selling popsicles at the entrance of our village can dodge it." Luo Sha was shocked and immediately turned around to see Shangsuke looking at him teasingly and asked, "Impossible, no one can escape from the gold sand funeral." "Then I will be the first one." There was even more disdain in Yusuke's eyes. "You know, in order to make the Sage Mode normal, he has been maintaining the Sage Mode, and his Sage Mode is mainly based on Earth attributes, supplemented by Fire attributes. His control over the Earth is almost unmatched in the ninja world. Just the little movements that Luo Sha made just now could not escape his control at all. Just the little movements that Luo Sha made just now could not escape his control at all, so at the moment when he was trapped by the Gold Sand Funeral, he rushed out of the encirclement of the Gold Sand Funeral with explosive speed, and he didn't even use the Flying Thunder God. It was just because the speed was too fast that Luo Sha couldn't observe it with his naked eyes. When Luo Sha was surprised, Yusuke took another step forward, and his figure seemed to cross the space. The next moment, he appeared in front of Luo Sha, and a powerful punch was imprinted on Luo Sha's abdomen, making him turn into a meteor and fly backwards. Yusuke looked at his right hand and murmured, "Gold Sand Armor." As expected, most of Gaara's moves are inherited from Luo Sha. The moment the fist hit him, he felt something was wrong. The punch did not hit the flesh, but rather seemed to hit steel. He understood what kind of moves Luo Sha used. It's just that compared to Gaara's sand, Luo Sha's gold sand is of higher quality, and the gold sand armor formed has stronger defensive power. But even so, this punch from Yusuke made Luo Sha extremely uncomfortable, and he suffered serious injuries. You must know that Yusuke has maintained high-intensity training for many years, coupled with the nourishment of the 6th treasury Immortal Thief, Yang Release, and Immortal Chakra. His current physical fitness is absolutely the best in the ninja world, and one punch can produce a force of 10,000 pounds. That's 10 tons. With this kind of power, it's easy to split mountains and rocks, not to mention the thin layer of gold sand on Luo Sha's body. Sure enough, after Yusuke walked to where Luo Sha fell, he saw Luo Sha's right hand covering his abdomen, using simple medical ninjutsu to repair the spine broken by Yusuke. Don't waste your energy. Let's talk about it when we get to the Konoha camp. Seeing this, Yusuke put his hand on Rasa's body, and the sealing magic instantly spread around Rasa's body, not only sealing Rasa's chakra, but also sealing his 5 senses, making him unable to control his body. Taking out the rope from the sealing wristband, he tied Rasa tightly, and Yusuke lifted him up to prepare to reunite with Hyuga Hazashi and the other two. At the same time, Hyuga Hazashi and the other two also dealt with the remaining sand ninjas, and seeing Yusuke carrying Rasa over, they also stepped forward. Hyuga Hazashi said with a guilty look on his face, "Yusuke, I really shouldn't have doubted your strength before. I apologize to you here." After that, he followed Inuzuka Tsumugi and Aburame Shiwei and bowed deeply to Yusuke. "I'm so sorry." Yusuke smiled and said, "It's okay. Brother Hazashi, Brother Shiwei and Sister Tsumugi, I know I'm young, and it's normal for you to have doubts, so I didn't care. Let's go back and hand in the mission. This time we have captured the 4th Kazekage, and we have firmly taken the initiative in the battlefield of the Wind Country." After saying that, Yusuke also raised the Luasha in his hand. "Well, let's go quickly. Lord Orochimaru will definitely be very happy." The 3 of them nodded. A living Luasha is much more useful than a dead Luasha. His identity and status ensure that the information in his mind will make the sand village stretched to the limit, leaving no room for development. In the camp of Konoha village, Orochimaru stuck a small flag with the word, "Snake," written on it on a small hill on the sand table, and laughed coldly. "Chiyo, let's see how you deal with it now." The location of this small hill is very good, on the edge of the battlefield of the Wind and Fire countries, and it is a very good reconnaissance point. And it just so happens that the Sand Ninja does not have as many reconnaissance means as Konoha, so this hill is very important to the Sand Ninja. They need to overlook the entire battlefield from a high place to ensure the movements of the Konoha ninjas, so as to formulate a detailed plan. But what Chiyo didn't expect was that Orochimaru didn't let the Konoha ninjas and the Sand Ninjas fight head-on. Most of them were in a guerrilla fight, and he accurately seized the loopholes in her layout and snatched the important hill. Chiyo looked at the elders in front of her. Her face was extremely ugly. Konoha has many families such as Hyuga, Inuzuka, Aburame, Yamakawa, etc., who have endless reconnaissance means. Without that hill to scout the routes of Konoha ninjas, our battle will be very passive, so we must snatch this hill back. Intelligence is very important in war, and it can even be said to be ranked first. Knowing yourself and your enemy means winning every battle. This is the importance of intelligence. On the battlefields of the Wind and Fire Kingdoms, the Wind Kingdom was obviously stronger overall, but in every battle, the Sand Ninja was in a passive position and suffered greater losses. The reason was intelligence. Under the various reconnaissance methods of the Hyuga, Inuzuka and Aburame families, their actions were basically no secrets at all. They were always detected by Konoha's ninjas before they had been in action for a long time, and were ambushed and suffered heavy losses. It can be said that as long as the two sides did not engage in direct combat, they could not be Konoha's opponents. They had thought about sending ninjas to kill Konoha's reconnaissance team, but Orochimaru's insight was amazing and his command was very precise, which made them return empty-handed every time. The loss of the hill this time made the already passive situation even more passive. Several actions were ambushed by Konoha's ninjas, and the losses were several times more than before. Ebizo's face was equally grim, but he knew that it would be very difficult to take back the hilltop. Without paying a price, Konoha's leader would not be called Orochimaru. Sister, Orochimaru can't be unprepared. We will probably have to pay a great price to take it back. Otherwise, we should force Orochimaru to have a head-on confrontation to share the blessing of the perfect Jinchuriki. Konoha can never be our opponent on the front battlefield. Chio, I understand what you said, but it's impossible for Orochimaru to face off easily. The most important thing is that I always feel that something happened to Rasa. He used to send back information once a day, but it's been 3 days and there's no information at all. Maybe something delayed him. I hope so. Although she said so, Chio's bad premonition became stronger and stronger. This premonition made her eager to open up the situation on the battlefield of Wind Country, so that no matter what happened in the future, the Sand Ninja would have the confidence. Notice to let Fenfuku use Shukaku's power to bomb the Konoha camp. She decided to take a gamble and use the terrifying destructive power of the tailed beast to change the current situation. Ha ha ha, I'm finally out. A raccoon dog with curse marks all over its body suddenly appeared in front of the Sand Ninja, laughing loudly. With just a sweep of its huge tail, it uprooted all the trees wherever it passed. The huge raccoon dog was Shukaku, and after a moment of excitement, it stopped laughing. It didn't forget its agreement with Fubuku, and turned to look at the Konoha camp in the distance. It slapped its right hand on its stomach, opened its mouth wide, and spit out a lot of wind style air training bomb. A huge wind bomb was ejected directly from Shukaku's mouth, bombarding Konoha like a cannonball. After the launch, Shukaku did not stop, and continued to mobilize the chakra in his body to launch continuously. In less than a minute, Shukaku launched more than 30 air training bombs. Water style, Teppanyaki, water style, water wall, earth escape, earth flow wall. As early as the moment Shukaku appeared, the ninjas of Konoha were prepared to deal with Shukaku's attack under the arrangement of Orochimaru. As the tailed beast that was used the most in the war, the intelligence of Shukaku had long been known to all the major ninja villages. Although Shukaku's strength is not weak among the tailed beasts, ranking around the middle, but its chakra is indeed the least, so for the tailed beast signature such as the tailed beast ball that consumes a lot of chakra, it is generally not used until the critical moment, and only the signature ninjutsu wind style air training bullet is used. Compared with the tailed beast ball, the power of wind style air training bullet is much smaller. As long as they are prepared, the strength of the Konoha ninjas can resist it. Bang, bang, the air training bullets collided with various attribute ninjutsu and cancelled each other out. The dull sound was heard in the air. However, Shukaku was huge, as tall as 50 meters. The air training bullets he fired were as big as 20 meters and had great power. To cancel one, more than a dozen ninjutsu attacks were often needed. In this way, after the Konoha ninjas had resisted nearly 30 air training bullets, they were somewhat powerless. The remaining 5 air training bullets broke through the defense and smashed towards the Konoha camp. Orochimaru stood in the center of the camp, looking at the wind bullets falling from the sky, with a hint of disdain on the corner of his mouth. Earth style, rock cannon technique. He formed seals with both hands, and instantly Orochimaru spat out 5 stone bullets the size of a baby's fist from his mouth, which crashed into the huge wind bomb in the sky. Bang, 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 bang. Accompanied by a huge roar, Shukaku's extremely condensed air training bullets were actually blasted away by Orochimaru using 5 small stone bullets. Looking at Shukaku rushing towards the Konoha camp, Orochimaru knew that the large group of sand ninjas was following them, but he was not afraid at all, and his eyes were still calm. He had already anticipated all this, and calmly ordered, "Everyone listen up, move to the designated location according to the plan, and wait for the attack of the sand ninjas." Yes, The Konoha ninjas in the camp instantly scattered and rushed to the arranged location. Shukaku is huge, and humans are at a great disadvantage in fighting it. Even if Orochimaru is stronger than Shukaku, it is basically impossible to defeat it quickly, so he plans to. Summoning technique. He slapped his hands on the ground, the smoke dissipated, and a huge purple snake 70 meters long appeared. It was Manzo. As soon as it appeared, Manzo saw Shukaku running towards it, and immediately said loudly, "Orochimaru, I want 1,000 sacrifices this time." Just as he was about to continue speaking, he was met with Orochimaru's cold gaze. He suddenly remembered that Orochimaru seemed to no longer be afraid of Raichi Cave. It was impossible for him to make Orochimaru treat him with respect as before. He immediately shut his mouth and looked at Orochimaru obediently. That's right, the reason why Orochimaru was so respectful to Manja in the past was because he was afraid of Raichido. Otherwise, how could a summoned beast that barely reached the level of Kage be worthy of his respect? Orochimaru landed on Manja's head and whispered, "Manja, help me entangle Shukaku, and I will seal him." Yes, the snakes were very well behaved. Even though the opponent was Shukaku, the whole snake turned into a purple afterimage and quickly swam towards Shukaku. At the same time, it opened its mouth and sprayed purple venom all over the sky. Orochimaru closed his eyes slightly, and the chakra on his body immediately changed. Scales appeared on his body, and his head also changed, becoming closer like a dragon. Chakra continued to gush out from his body, turning into green chakra snakes. This series of changes could not escape the snakes under Orochimaru's feet. This madman has indeed mastered the power of immortals. The snake was very frightened. It knew in its heart that Orochimaru was not a kind person, but very cruel. Before, it could still speak nonsense to him by relying on its origin in Longchi. Now, if it continues to do so, Orochimaru will definitely use it as a snakeskin wallet and stuff its flesh into a petri dish for experiments. Thinking of this, the snake's speed instantly increased to a higher level. It was good at strangling its opponents with speed. Now it burst out with all its strength. Even Shukaku didn't react. In just a blink of an eye, it was entangled by the snake's body. Well done, Mandarin. Orochimaru, who was standing on top of Mandarin, praised him. He stretched out his right hand, and 5 colors of chakra gathered between his fingers. He exerted force on his feet, and his body flashed, and he rushed towards the fukufuku on top of Shukaku's head. Don't even think about it. Puppet technique. 3 treasures sucking collapse. At this moment, a cold old woman's voice sounded, followed by a thick tornado that wrapped Orochimaru in it. Orochimaru only felt a terrifying suction force coming from the center of the tornado trying to suck him in. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the suction force. He saw that Chiyo had come to Shukaku's vicinity without knowing when. She stretched out dozens of chakra lines with her hands to control the 3 puppets of Buddha, Dharma, and Monk to overlap in a triangular formation. The terrifying suction force was naturally emitted by these 3 puppets. It's still this outdated move. Orochimaru sneered, and his chakra burst out. With the chakra alone, he tore the tornado apart, escaped the tornado's restraints, and fell to the ground not far from Chiyo. Chiyo looked at Orochimaru's appearance and was shocked. She guessed that it was most likely the Sage Mode. She secretly lamented the horror of Konoha's inheritance. The Sage Mode has been passed down in the ninja world since ancient times, but the Fire Country has the real way of practice and inheritance. The other 4 countries have only heard of it but never seen it. Although she was surprised in her heart, Chiyo didn't want to be looked down upon by Orochimaru. She said calmly, "It doesn't matter whether the moves are old or not, as long as they are useful." Quote, at the same time, her inner vigilance has been raised to the extreme. Orochimaru in this state must be stronger than before. The 10 people in the nearly Matsu group are guarding the surroundings firmly in special positions. Boom. Orochimaru, Shukaku is so strong, I can't hold on any longer. If you continue like this, I will not care about you and will go straight back to Raichi Cave. Manja fell to Orochimaru with wounds all over his body, turned around and yelled, then continued to rush towards Shukaku, and continued to tremble. Orochimaru turned his head to look at the place where Shukaku and Manja were fighting, and found that Manja basically had no ability to resist. He frowned immediately. Sure enough, the perfect Jinchuriki is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. The power exerted by Shukaku is far beyond what was heard during World War II. He felt a little troubled. Although his strength has improved a lot now, he is not yet able to solve Chiyo instantly. If Shukaku takes a long time to attack Konoha ninja, Konoha will lose this war. Yusuke, come back quickly. I don't believe that a mere Luasha can be your opponent. Just as Orochimaru was thinking, a golden stream of light shot out from behind the Konoha camp. The speed of the stream of light was extremely fast, and it instantly reached below Shukaku. Boom! The sky was filled with yellow sand, and the strong explosion attracted everyone's attention. These people showed incredible expressions. At this time, a big hole appeared on Shukaku's belly. The 50-meter-tall body actually soared 100 meters into the air, drew a beautiful arc in the air, and fell heavily to the ground. The earth trembled. Shukaku was lying on the ground, his face full of pain. Obviously the previous attack had severely damaged his body. Orochimaru looked at the tall figure on the tree, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You came at the right time. Chiyo looked at Yusuke in shock. You know, Shukaku is 50 meters tall, his whole body is made of sand, and his weight is more than 8,000 tons. The mysterious man actually blasted him 100 meters high with one punch. Even Tsunade's strange power can't do it. Seeing Chiyo's expression, Orochimaru's disdain in his eyes became even worse. If he wanted to, he could do this kind of attack, but he couldn't do it as easily and comfortably as Yusuke. Not good. Just when Chiyo was stunned for a moment, she suddenly heard a sound of breaking air in her ears. Her face changed immediately, and she hurriedly tried to control the Chikamatsu Ten to defend, but it was too late. Orochimaru's arms stretched infinitely like rubber, and the chakra on his hands condensed. At this moment, they seemed to be the sharpest blades in the world, easily penetrating the bodies of the Chikamatsu Ten and strung them up like candied haws. The chakra on the arm shook slightly, and the Chikamatsu Ten, the current highest masterpiece of the sand ninja puppets, exploded into debris all over the sky and fell to the ground. After doing all this, Orochimaru calmly retracted his extended arms and looked at Chiyo with contempt. See. This old-fashioned move will only become a flaw. Chiyo's face was extremely ugly. More than half of her strength was on this puppet. Now it was destroyed by Orochimaru in just one encounter, causing a huge loss of her combat power. On the other side, there was also Yusuke, whose combat power was even more unfathomable. Even Shukaku, whom they regarded as their trump card, had no ability to fight back in his hands. Of course, she still had a glimmer of luck in her heart. That was the fourth Kazekage Rasa. As long as he could intercept Konoha's supplies, she was not without the power to negotiate, but this glimmer of luck was very weak, because there had been no news about Rasa for a long time. As if seeing what Chiyo was thinking, Orochimaru smiled and said, You were waiting for Rasa, right? It's a pity that his strength is not comparable to Yusuke. Now that Yusuke is back, I guess your fourth Kazekage Rasa is either dead or in Konoha's hands. Otherwise, what do you think is the reason why Yusuke has not appeared before? Hearing this, Chiyo's face became even uglier, and the last bit of luck in her heart had completely disappeared. She turned her head to look at other battlefields and found that the sand ninja was being suppressed by the Konoha ninja who had ambushed in advance. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.